solid, conservative, and just plain right. Well, folks, Phil had some lawyering to do. I feel like to do some lawyering. He had to do some lawyering for the first hour of today's show, but he will be back, should be back by the 3 o'clock hour. So in the meantime, I will have the first hour of the show today, but we still got a lot to cover. But first, most importantly, it is Meatloaf Monday.
I think I'll try the meatloaf sandwich.
Do you know what that is?
Yes, meatloaf.
What is it? I'm only asking in case I have to describe it later to a doctor.
Look, it's nutritious. It's delicious.
Made out of meat. Add ketchup if you want. I couldn't care less.
That's right. It's Meatloaf Monday, folks. And like I said, I will be doing the first hour of the show today, but Phil will be back by the second hour. So I'll be covering the first hour. We'll be talking a lot about this tragic shooting at a Michigan church yesterday, actually, and sort of the response to it. I think it's pretty clear that Christianity is under attack, and we're going to be going into that more. Also, the Christian genocide, and that's what it is, a Christian genocide in Nigeria right now that is not getting enough coverage at all. So we'll be talking a lot about that in the first hour. And then secondly, Phil will be coming back, and the second dipper will be political violence and the rampant political violence nationwide and how to combat that and why we're seeing that. And then we're going to be talking about government shutdown theater. Are we going to have a government shutdown? That's right. It is that time of the year again where everybody goes nuts wondering if we're up against a government shutdown. And who knows if that's going to be the case. There's still a little bit of time. We normally see, government shutdowns averted, but not always. So we're going to be talking about if this will be another case where we just get by without shutting the government down, or will we see a government shutdown? And if we do, what does that mean? So make sure to stay tuned for that. But in the meantime, I have written up a Rightside Way monologue for you guys. Rightside Way monologue sponsored every day by attorney Stan McDonald. That's Stan McDonald from law firm of Wilmer and Lee. And I will be telling you guys about Stan McDonald here momentarily. All right, so I have a question for y'all. I don't know what compelled me to go this way with the monologue, but I'm going to start off my monologue with a simple question. It should be a simple question. What is an American? Like I said, it seems like a simple question, but it's really quite layered and complicated. What is an American? What does it mean to identify as an American? This is the question that is fundamental to our nation's identity. It determines how we communicate with one another, the standards that we hold our public officials to, and it provides the invisible thread of connectivity that we hold with our fellow Americans. It gives us a sense of commonality, a sense of structure, and most importantly, it keeps us united. As we've seen a rise in political polarization and a rise in political violence in our nation, I think it's crucial that we all ask ourselves this question. What does it mean to be an American? It's now been over 2 weeks since the assassination of Charlie Kirk, and I, for one, still don't feel the same after seeing that happen. But I think that's the case with a lot of Americans, and especially Americans that are in my generation. This nation is looking for an answer as to what unites us instead of divides us. What do we agree on instead of disagree on? What can we hold on to as a rallying cry to move this country forward together to make it the best place possible? But most importantly, how do we get to a place where we don't kill each other over our beliefs? We could compile a list of questions in response to that. We could fill out a questionnaire and come up with a score that says we agree this much. But the real question is the one that I asked to begin with. What is an American? Over the last several years, there seems to be a rise of people that believe America is just an idea. It's abstract. America is whatever you want it to be. It's sort of like a shell, just a place for anyone and everyone globally to come to and express their own truths. And anyone who disagrees with you about their truth is spewing hate and must be silenced. And if violence is the best way to do that, then so be it. I think we've all experienced just a bit too much of that lately, to be honest with you. And it's that way of thinking that has opened the door to the rampant nihilism that's starting to get a foothold in our society. It took the life of Charlie Kirk. It took the life of 2 kids at a Catholic school shooting earlier this year. It took the life of a detainee at an ICE facility just this past week. And just yesterday, it took the lives of, I believe now, 5 innocent people at a church in Michigan. What's causing this rise in nihilism, atheism, anti-Americanism? It's our lack of identity. We're starting to lose our foundation as a nation. We've taught our children to hate the country they live in. We teach them that America is a racist country and that America is on stolen land. That the men who built this nation from the ground up were bad people. So bad, actually, that we need to desecrate and destroy any statue or memorial that honors their legacy. And what shall we replace it with? Why, your own truth, of course. If you want to mutilate your own body, then go right ahead. You want to flood America with third world immigrants that don't exhibit any of America's values or beliefs? Sure. What does it matter anyways? America isn't real. America is whatever you want it to be. Well, let me tell you what America actually is. First off, America is a Christian nation. America was built by Europeans that had enough of a tyrannical government and dared to build it from the ground up. America was built off the words, we hold these truths to be self-evident, that all men are created equal, that they are endowed by their creator with certain unalienable rights, that among these are life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. America is Washington crossing the frozen Delaware. America is successfully storming the beaches of Normandy to liberate Europe. America is lifting the flag at Iwo Jima after defeating your enemy. America is coming together after fighting your fellow Americans in a civil war, then marching forward together to continue building the greatest nation that's ever been. America is manifest destiny. America is conquering the Western Plains and exploring the wonders of our beautiful land. America is the Grand Canyon. America is the Rocky Mountains. America is the Mississippi River. And America is the descendants of the great men who built it and lived it. I am America. Half of me comes from my great-grandfather who came to America from Ireland to help build it, and the other half comes from an entire lineage here in the southern antebellum of Alabama. I am the descendant of my grandfathers and great-grandfathers who fought for this country. You are America. I know who the ruffians are, and because I met several of y'all, and y'all are salt-of-the-earth, red-blooded Americans, y'all are America too. But did you notice that everything I just mentioned was tangible? From the great battles of this nation to the physical landscape, even the ideas are tangible. They were formed off of a foundation of truth, unlike the, quote, truths of today that are built off of whatever you feel like at that exact moment. America was built by men who had a fundamental belief in the Christian God. How many of our current leaders hold this same belief? We just saw Tim Kaine a couple of weeks ago, a current sitting U.S. senator, say a couple of times, but this main one, that believing your rights come from God instead of the government is dangerous. That's what the Iranians believe, he said. Actually, Senator Kaine, what you just said is inherently anti-American because you're mocking the core foundation that our founding fathers built America on. And how did we get here? How did we get to where senators can spew such anti-American nonsense? Because we're slowly losing our identity. I also stated earlier that America is the descendants of the men that built it and lived it. That means you can't just open the borders and let in the third world to replace the actual descendants of America and then call them Americans. You can't. Because whether you like it or not, America and Americans are more than just people who live on a piece of land deemed to be America. One of my favorite quotes comes from the Civil War. At Appomattox Courthouse, Robert E. Lee arrived to surrender his Army of Northern Virginia to Ulysses S. Grant. As he sat across from Grant in that room, he was surrounded by Union soldiers. One of those being Eli S. Parker, a Native American who was an aide to General Grant. He was also an officer in the Union. General Lee looked at Parker, extended his hand, and referencing Parker's Native American heritage, stated, "Well, I'm glad to see one real American here." Eli then replied with, "We are all Americans here." Think about that. A Native American stating to a man who just led the charge to secede from the Union that they were all equally American. Why? Not just because they lived in America, but because it was in their blood. Fast forward to today, where we have representatives like Ilhan Omar who give speeches to Somalis in America claiming to make sure Somalia doesn't lose its identity as long as she's in office. How about you worry about America? Is that so radical? But this is the same Ilhan Omar that claims America is a racist nation, appears to be doing everything within her power to change America into what she wants it to be, not what it actually is. Having strong borders is not racist. Honoring the men that built America is not racist. A country that allows someone like Ilhan Omar to sit as a representative as she spews such anti-American rhetoric and spits on the grave of Charlie Kirk clearly is not a racist nation. But how do we bring America back to a place where our public officials revere America? Put people into office who truly love America and its identity. Obviously, there are many people in our government who do love America, our president being one of them. But on one side of the aisle, it's almost a requirement to have this revisionist view of America and that it's inherently broken. I say we start teaching our kids to love America. We stop making them feel guilty about being American. We stop woke washing American history. We keep our borders strong. And if you do want to come to America, you must also love America and uphold its Christian values. Not that everyone in America must be Christian, but that you must honor and uphold the Christian values that are set in place. But we're not going to do this just by sitting back and hoping it fixes itself. We must get engaged politically. We must outvote the people who are trying to vote in the Ilhan Omars, the Tim Kaines, and etc. We must beat them politically. There's a growing group of lost people in America right now, people that are utterly confused. They have no identity to fall on. They don't appeal to God. They don't take pride in their American identity. And this causes them to tie themselves into a knot trying to create their own identity. They go and search for purpose in transgenderism and LGBTQism, but this makes them even more lost. They then take their pain out on others who are just simply speaking the truth. I've said it 1,000 times, and I'll say it once again. This fight is a spiritual one, and the only way forward is straight through. We must take the truth into the darkest parts of our society. We will outnumber and outlast the evildoers, and in the battle of good versus evil, spoiler alert, good wins. Even if evil decides to show its face, like it has several times lately, that doesn't mean it's winning. It actually means the devil is getting desperate. And it appears the devil may have overplayed his hand. So what does it mean to be an American? Well, it's just not an abstract idea. It's inherently tangible. And that's not up for debate. And that's a wrap for the Right Side Away. Like I said, I'm not sure what caused me to go that route with the monologue, but it just kind of, I felt it on my heart lately. I feel like there's not enough conversation of what an American actually is. Instead of just, whatever you want it to be, whatever you feel like it being. No, actually, America has a set identity. And until we start appealing to that identity, I don't think we'll have true unity amongst ourselves as Americans. This is JP here, filling in for Phil for the first hour of today's show. We'll be right back.
We just recorded an amazing podcast with former Navy SEAL Jared Hudson, who now hunts down human traffickers. He's also got a personal story that involves a lot of overcoming and a ton of faith. So listen, I can't encourage you enough. Go ahead and sit down. Make yourself ready for the Just Right podcast. In this case, with Jared Hudson. Yeah, let's do a show. 1, 2, 3, hey! Jared Hudson, welcome to the show.
Hey, thanks for having me, brother.
I'm glad to have you and appreciate you making time. So I'm going to do sort of an intro so folks know exactly who I've got sitting across the table from me right now. But so you're born and raised here in Alabama, right?
Mm-hmm. Well, born in Lynchburg, Virginia, and when I was about 4 or 5, we moved here. So, but yeah, pretty much born and raised.
So you're a
here.
Carpetbagger. You came down from up north.
Came down from up north. Came down from just below the Mason-Dixon line now. So still technically the South.
We'll take it.
Yeah.
Bottom line though, grew up to become a Navy SEAL. That was your career. Team 3, if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah, that's right.
Sniper qualified.
Yep, sniper.
You're also APO certified, Alabama,
Alabama
Police Officer Standards. Yeah. Certified law enforcement officer.
Yep.
Spent time in law enforcement, even ran for sheriff of the largest county in the state of Alabama, Jefferson County.
I was the sheriff runner-up is what I like to say because it makes me feel better.
You were actually the Republican choice. How about that?
There you go. How about that?
And I'll be honest with you, too. We'll talk about that more later. But as a longtime member of the Republican Party and a former elected official myself, I watched your race. And you were in a blue county running a red race, and you took him to the wire. And I think that says a lot.
Yeah, about 1%, and I lost by about 1.5%, I think, is what it came down to.
It was way close, and I think he was scared.
Yeah,
and he should have been. All right, there's that. You ran for sheriff. You love the Lord. You make no bones about it.
Only thing that matters.
Perfect. Which also leads me to you got a beautiful wife and 3 daughters.
I do. Yep.
And I think those 2 are the crowning pieces of your resume.
They are. So I've got the wife, the 3 girls, and obviously my faith. First and foremost, even above them, Jesus says, if you don't hate your family, then you don't have a love for me. It doesn't mean that I actually hate my family because I'm called to draw them to Christ, but my love for him even supersedes my love for them, and my love for them is unbelievably great. I'd burn the world down for those girls, and so that's how I feel. So imagine what I do for Jesus, if that makes sense.
And you're trained to burn the world down.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah. Don't mess with my daughters because I'm gonna die trying.
I'm for that.
Yeah.
You now run, having spent time in the teams, you're out civilian world. You now run what, 2 companies, the
I do,
Shooting
yeah.
Institute and Covenant Rescue
Rescue
Group.
Group, yep.
And we'll get into both of those in a minute. But I think suffice to say, your previous resume has translated well into what you're doing in the civilian world.
It has, yeah. The time in the SEAL teams is what prepared me, but also gave me, it's like the little bit of bait on the hook. And you still have to set the hook, but that's what gets people interested in who I am. Because SEAL, I'm just a regular dude like anybody else, but SEAL is a thing that people look at and they're like, wow, like you hear doctor, you hear lawyer, you hear politician, congressman, senator. Those things carry some weight because it takes something to get there, and I think that's what SEAL has done for me.
I think that's fair to say, and I think there's never going to be a time in your life, I'm of the mind, that God doesn't plant something in your life with purpose beyond what you might have imagined it.
100%, man. 100%.
You also, apparently, like every other SEAL, you wrote a book.
Yeah, that's right. Now, all my other SEAL buddies say, I didn't write a book, bro. You wrote a pamphlet. It's only like 50 pages long. But yeah,
it works. It publishes.
Yeah, that's right.
And you also, by the way, right here with Rightside, you're one of our podcasters.
Yeah,
you got the Liberty Minute podcast, comes out every other week for the most part. Yeah.
I told a guy told me, he said, "Oh man, you're that guy on the Liberty Minute with Phil Williams." I said, "Yeah, man. My name's Jared. Nice to meet you." Go, "I know exactly who you are. I got one question though. Why do you call it the Liberty Minute? Because it's like 13 to 17 minutes every time." And I said, "Look, it's just a name, bro.
It's a euphemism,
yeah,
man.
It's just a name." So I thought it was pretty good though.
All right, cool resume. Let me ask you this: you got a beautiful family, amazing military record. You live large. How? And I'm going to start off. I'm going to get philosophical right off the bat. So, having said all that, those things, like on paper, I see it all. But how do you want to be remembered?
Yeah, no, I mean, the only thing that you should be remembered as is who are you in the person of Jesus Christ, because that's the only thing that lasts, right? Now, if I die right now, I'm going to be attached. I'm going to have a lasting impact, even in my death, on my wife and my girls. Possibly some of the people in my sphere of influence, possibly some of the guys in the SEAL teams I work with or in business or whatever. I might have a lasting impact. But oftentimes that lasting impact is not so much – it's not so much who you are here physically. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
I really believe it's who you are in the person of Jesus Christ. Because they look at it and say, man, that guy really was who he believed in.
And we are back. This is producer JP here, filling in for Phil in the first hour of Rightside Radio today, where it's always solid, conservative, and just plain right. Feel free to text in your thoughts, 833-687-4448. That's 833-68-RIGHT. Text it or call it. It's the same number for both. But first, I got to tell you guys about Stan McDonald. Stan McDonald, attorney Stan McDonald, is a partner at the law firm of Wilmer & Lee out of Huntsville. He's a 30-year veteran in the practice of law in North Alabama. Not only will Stan advocate and fight for your legal needs, but he has been an absolute warrior for causes near and dear to our Rightside Ruffian community. Attorney Stan McDonald has represented his clients in literally thousands of real estate transactions over the years, and Stan McDonald knows how to represent you in court and in front of federal, state, and local decision makers. When Stan is on your side, he likes to say you'll have no greater friend, and likewise, your adversaries will have no greater foe. So here you go. I'm about to give you his number. Attorney Stan McDonald at the law firm of Wilmer & Lee, 256-533-0202. That's Stan McDonald, 256-533-0202. And tell him you heard about it on Rightside Radio. And Stan McDonald's rules. That's the disclaimer. That's all the disclaimer you need. So there you go. All right, I'm going to get some of y'all's text here. We got Kevin from Hartselle. JP, roll tide, roll tide. You were about right. Or excuse me, you're right about the 3-point difference. Just a lower score. Way to go. I was right about the 3-point difference. And what can I say, man? We don't lose to Georgia. I don't know what you want me to say. Alabama could have been 0-3 going into that Georgia game, and we still would have found a way to win because we don't lose to Georgia. The only time we lost to Georgia was, a couple of, 2022 national championship. We had all of our great wide receivers hurt, and they still squeaked away barely with a win. So I don't know what you want me to say, man. But yeah, I was right in the 3-point difference. It's pretty crazy. Grace from Madison saying, JP, what it means to be an American as a child of legal immigrants. Dad was always so proud to tell us, quote, we are Americans with a blank heritage, fill in the blank. He did not believe in hyphenated America. Ilhan Omar was a refugee that America took in and got her to where she is. We need to stop political correctness and Stronger and others like her of her citizenship and ship back to her country. Allegiance to America first should not be an option when you choose to stay. I think that's a great way to put it. Like, legal immigrants who come to America and help build America, like my great grandfather was and his family that came over from Ireland to America to help build it. You know, he didn't come here and shame America and try to turn America into Ireland. He came here with a reverence for America, a love for America, and came here to help build America. And that's really what it boils down to. Instead of opening the borders to whoever in the world wants to come in and then wreck our society and then put those people into office that say that they're going to make sure Somalia keeps its identity while she's a representative, that is just inherently anti-American. So I agree completely. And I think in the midst of doing that, we do start to lose a bit of our identity of what America really is. Shag Nasty the Atheist is texting in already today. Shag Nasty says, MAGA is going to eat itself on infighting their own crazies before our orange Fuhrer finally strokes out on a treat cheeseburger. Okay. I'm sure he's trying to insinuate, like I've seen many, that this, shooter at the Michigan church was MAGA. I've seen a lot of pictures of him, supposedly wearing a Trump shirt in 2020. There's been some claims that shirt was photoshopped, or I've seen some people say too that he had a Trump sign on his fence. I don't know what's true or not right now. There's been a lot of stuff out in the media, and the bottom line is I'm going to get into this more on the other side, but it's really irrelevant in this case, okay? And I'm going to tell you why, because there was no ideological reasoning as to why this shooter, unlike the Tyler Robinson guy who killed Charlie Kirk, and unlike the guy who just shot up an ICE facility and only killed detainees, who had written reasons as to why they did what they did, and it was ideological to the Democratic base and to that party. This guy was an Iraq veteran who unfortunately probably suffered from some, mental illness from his time in the military. I know there's been some reports that he did have some issues, whether it came from directly his time in the military or not. This guy had a mental illness, and he had an attack on a church. Okay. And newsflash, I put my identity with Christians over my, I view myself as a Christian before I view myself as a Republican. Okay. So that's an attack on, the people, the Christian people. And that comes before the Republican Party. So there was no ideological, reasoning as to why he did this that isn't aligned with, the Republican Party and what we believe. If that guy attacked a Christian church, then he's attacking Christian identity. He's not, Republican or Democrat has nothing to do with that in that case. Unless he had an ideological reason to do that is in line with the Republican Party, like we saw with Tyler Robinson and Joshua John, then we can have a conversation. Unless, we see that, then it's completely irrelevant. But like I said, I'm going to get into that more on the other side of this break here. This is JP here, filling in for the first hour for Phil today. We'll be right back.
Makes sense. So it's, and I believe it's in James, he talks about, I'll show you my faith through my works. That's not a works-based salvation. Right. He's not saying that I'm working my way to heaven. I'm not doing X, Y, and Z, and that's going to get me to heaven. No, he's just saying, I have faith and I believe in Jesus, and because of that, you're going to see my fruits. My fruits are going to show that I believe in Jesus. Now, there's another aspect of that without getting too far off on this, topic. You hear a lot of people say, oh, I let people see who Jesus is through how I live my life, right? That's what, I don't necessarily tell everybody about Jesus, but they get to see who Jesus is through how I live my life. Well, that's not good either, because Paul says, how will they hear if they don't have a preacher to preach? So there's two aspects to that. There's one, what I say, right? Scripture says a freshwater spring doesn't produce salt water. What I say is unbelievably important. But then once I say it, it's my actions that back it up. It's words, then action. And we see that with God. John chapter 1, in the beginning was the Word, right? Wasn't in the beginning was the action, was the creation. No, in the beginning was the Word was God, the Word was with God. And then all was made through him and by him, and without him, nothing was made. We see that in John chapter 1. First was the Word, what he spoke, what we speak. Then second is the actions that back up what we speak. And ultimately see in John chapter 4 or John chapter 1 verse 14, the Word became flesh and dwelt among men, right? And we see that in Isaiah. He says, I was amazed. God was amazed that there was none who could stand before him. He's talking about when he was drawing the plan to create the world. None could intercede for man, so he said, I'll take up my own strong arm of salvation. So God says, I'm going to make a world, where sin is possible. I'm not going to make them sin, but I'm going to give them the option. And guess what? I know they're going to choose sin. And there's none that are going to be able to stand before him, but I'm going to make a way out of sin, and it's going to be through me. That's what God says, and that's who we should be.
That's
so
1
the lasting
10:13.
That's right. So that's a lasting impact. The lasting impact is when I die, when I'm gone, when anybody looks, was Jared Hudson, was his actions, how he raised his kids, the husband he was to his wife, how he was to his friends, the guys he went to war with, the guys that he worked with here, stateside law enforcement. Did his actions match the words that he said? And those are the two important things. So when I'm remembered, I want to be remembered as a guy whose actions matched my words, because ultimately that should, as a Christian, that should give not honor and glory to me, that gives honor and glory to God. That guy really was who he believed in.
I think that's awesome. And let me ask you this, because I'm going to chase a rabbit for a minute. I just heard probably 5 times in the last couple of minutes you quoting scripture. So like me
loosely quoting scripture.
Okay, it wasn't too awful of a paraphrase, but most of it was pretty accurate.
Yeah.
And also when you said that, it would click verses in my mind. I think I responded back a minute ago, 1 Corinthians 10:13.
Yeah.
So I'm a firm believer in memorizing scripture. My personal, I call it my life verse, is Joshua 1:8-9. And it says, "This book of the law shall not depart from you. You shall meditate on it day and night, so that you may do what is written in it, and by this achieve prosperity and success." So let me ask you this. Is the memorization of scripture something that's happened just because it was ingrained over time, or do you have a deliberate attempt on a regular basis to put it to memory?
Man, I just read it, if I'm being honest.
It just sticks?
Yeah, just read it. Wait, what'd you say?
Does it just stick? I mean, when you read it, does it stay?
Stick? Yeah,
or do you intentionally try to memorize it?
No, I don't intentionally try to memorize it. It's just I think it's just the natural outcome of of reading the word. You can, and when I was a kid, we did Awanas. I think it was what my dad. Yes, we did Awanas. Not far from here. Rainbow City First Baptist, right up the road here. And so we would memorize verses as a kid that would stick. And having a dad that was a pastor, my parents they never forced us to do anything, but we would read scripture, and we'd read it as a family. And I think all my brothers and sisters do the same thing. We spend time in our Bible. It's a part of our life because it was ingrained into us at a young age.
Yeah.
Proverbs says, train up a child in the way they'll go, and when they're old, they won't depart from it. And so I think there's an aspect of that to whoever I see it with my daughters, with my girls. We'll do memory verses, and we'll read stories.
And we are back. This is producer JP here, filling in for Phil for the first hour of Rightside Radio today, where it's always solid, conservative, and just plain right. That's right, folks. Phil has some lawyering to do. Phil likes to lawyer sometimes. He is indeed a lawyer still. So he had to step out and miss the first hour of today's show for that reason. But I will be filling in the show in the meantime. He should be here at the start of hour number 2. So y'all make sure to stay tuned for that. I'm going to continue to answer some of y'all's texts before I dive into some material here. We got John from Huntsville texting in. Spectacular monologue, JP. Thank you, sir. He also said, did you see any of that crazy Ryder Cup where fans were heckling Roy and somebody threw a beer at his wife, Erica, and the American team nearly came back and beat the Europeans? Dude, yeah. That was they were setting up for the comeback of the ages. I really had my hopes up there for a second. It really seemed like an impossible task. But when Cam Young and JT won on 18 back-to-back, I really thought they were going to storm back and win. But the European team ended up getting away there with a close one. And yeah, I mean, I've seen a lot of people talking about the heckling of Rory. Personally, I mean, I think it's just that's what the Ryder Cup brings. You can talk about, that's not hadn't have a place in golf, and throwing a beer at his wife is obviously not okay. But I think Rory needs to get a little bit of thicker skin personally. But I don't know. I mean, I wasn't there. I didn't hear the exact stuff that was said. So he can take it however he wants. But his team came up with the win. So there's that. Jeff from Indiana said, JP, one of the things that's wrong with people who don't appreciate America is the same as everything else. When you're given something you didn't work for, you don't appreciate it as much. The majority of people act like they hate America and they have never done anything to America great, like the people who fought the wars and the people who built businesses and infrastructure that makes everyone's life easier. Bottom line is, when you give someone something they didn't work for, they just don't appreciate it. I think that's spot on, Jeff Rowe. We also got Adam from Athens here. One more text. He said, great monologue, JP. Appreciate it. He said, also, Bama was outplayed and outcoached Saturday, but found a way to win. I don't think so. I think listen, they're both pretty evenly matched teams. So I think that was a gritty game. I think Kirby made some mistakes. I think going forward on fourth down on that one drive was a mistake where he could get the field goal and tied it. I think that was just a fairly matched game from two great teams, two great coaches that will probably see themselves down the line eventually again. So I look forward to seeing that matchup later on in the season if that's the case. All right, folks, we're going to get into some material here. Like I said, keep texting in your thoughts, 833-687-4448, or you can call it 833-687-RIGHT. So this shooting at a church in Michigan yesterday, a Latter-day Saints church in Michigan that left, the last number I saw was 4, could have been 5. I would look it up right now, but I'm currently doing the show. Bottom line is a tragic situation where a guy rammed his truck into a church and also had some gasoline to start a fire, and the church was engulfed in flames for a good bit after the shooting took place. But after he rammed his truck in there, he stepped out and started to fire upon innocent churchgoers. And just a tragic situation, like I said. Another instance where evil has showed its face, and just reminds you of the battle that we're in right now. You know, it's not a Democrat-Republican issue as much as a spiritual good versus evil issue. And I don't care, I don't care where you are politically. If you're on the side of good, then I'm with you. If you're on the side of evil, then, I'm against you. And just like we saw yesterday, evil showed its face against just people, innocent churchgoers going to church on a Sunday morning, not expecting anything to happen, just going to worship like they have a right to do. And then they were just fired upon for no other reason other than this guy just felt like it. And it's just a tragic situation. The shooter was taken out by police. So he is deceased. But the response to this shooting has been really disgraceful, in my opinion, because the left is scrambling to pin this guy as a MAGA shooter. Okay, so let's detach ourselves from this guy's political beliefs and whether he, registered Republican, voted for Trump, whatever. The fact that their instant gut reaction to a shooting, a tragic shooting, is not to, pray for the victims, mourn the victims. It's to try to point and say, see, that guy was MAGA. You guys are a terrorist, organization. You guys aren't good guys. You guys are bad guys. And I don't know. My gut reaction tells me that's a sign that they're desperate for some reason, because I think they realize that the rhetoric that they've been spewing has incited people like Tyler Robinson and this guy, Joshua John, who shot up an ICE facility. Both of those shooters wrote why they did what they did. And they are both in line with the rhetoric that the left has come to and the rhetoric that the Democratic Party has been spewing. Look at Tyler Robinson. He said that Charlie Kirk spews too much hate towards, transgenders. And he wrote on his bullet, "Hey, fascist, catch." That is directly in line with the left calling Republicans fascist, the left, attacking people who are against transgenderism. That is directly in line with the party line with the left right now. And then look at Joshua John, who wrote up, that the ICE is going to pick up their dirty paycheck. And hopefully this will cause ICE, ICE officers to think twice or to look over their shoulder. That is also directly in line with, people like Gavin Newsom, who are saying that ICE has no right to wear masks to conduct, their operations. Tim Walz calling ICE Gestapo. So those are both ideological events where they were motivated by the rhetoric that the left has spewed because they said it themselves. And now they're trying to pin, this guy, their gut reaction, instead of, like I said, to, mourn for the victims, pray for the victims, is to try to point and say that this guy was a Republican so that they can gain some gotcha or something like that. And the only evidence that they have is allegedly there's a picture from the street of the shooter's house where he had a Trump Vance sign on the fence. There's also a picture of him with his wife and son in 2020 where he allegedly was wearing a Trump shirt. There's been some allegations that this photo was doctored. I don't know if that's true or not, but the bottom line is, first of all, the difference between them is what's the ideological motive from this guy? There's nothing with the Republican Party right now that would inspire people to shoot at Christians because, newsflash, The Republican Party is the Christian party. The Republican Party is the party that is for Christian values. So even if this guy was a guy who voted for Trump, there's nothing ideological to connect him to some, MAGA terrorism, because there's nothing that MAGA officials have said to encourage people to shoot up Christians. That's just antithetical. And by the way, even if you did vote for Trump, but then you're inspired to go and shoot at innocent Christians, you're not on my team. I don't claim you. The Republican Party doesn't claim you. And I condemn you doing what you did. Okay? There's nothing that the Republican Party has been saying that would cause a supporter of Trump to feel inspired to go shoot up Christians. That's the difference here. And by the way, it doesn't even matter. Why is the gut reaction to try to get a gotcha from the Democratic Party? Are they such in state of a despair that they need to get gotchas on Republicans that they, are grasping at straws to say, aha, see, MAGA. Why? By the way, study from Axios of all places. This was retweeted by John Fetterman, a Democrat. Study says that left-wing terrorism outpaces far-right attacks for first time in 30 years. Okay. I think this is why they're grasping at straws. I think this is why they're so desperate to pin everything on MAGA. And it's despicable because, like I said, there's nothing to back. Okay, the guy maybe voted for Trump. The guy may have been a Trump supporter in 2020. What's the point? He's not acting out violence because of his political beliefs. Okay, you're attacking Christians in a Christian church, then you're evil. Plain and simple. You're not on my team. So I just wanted to say that because I'm starting to see this narrative go up. And Eric Swalwell, of all people, shockingly, right, has been posting, this guy with a Trump shirt and saying that, this guy was MAGA. And it's tiresome. But like I said, I think it's just another example of the sad state the Democratic Party is right now, because I think they realize their supporters are starting to get out of hand with the rhetoric that they're spewing. And that's why their gut reaction is to try to point at MAGA after a tragedy like this. We shouldn't be having a political discussion when this is not a political act. This is an evil act against Christians, period, the end. Which, by the way, this is a growing trend of violence against Christians, not just in America, but globally. Have you guys been seeing what's been going on in Nigeria? AKA the Christian genocide in Nigeria? Looking at an article here from Newsweek, this was August 20th of 2025. This article was put up. 7,000 Christians have been killed in Nigeria this year alone. This year alone. The Islamists in Nigeria are actively slaughtering Christians as we speak. And have you guys seen any mainstream media news coverage on it? From Fox News, CNN, anybody? I haven't seen any. If it wasn't for, places like Twitter, if it wasn't for independent media, or if it wasn't for, studies like this from Newsweek, I wouldn't know about an ongoing Christian genocide in Nigeria. And that's what it is. Christians being killed because they're Christians. And actually, of all people who are calling this out, Bill Maher actually came out and voiced how ridiculous this is and how it's crazy this hasn't been getting any coverage. Bill Maher, by the way, an avowed atheist, and has made a career of going after Christianity, talking about why he thinks Christianity is nonsense and false. And he, of all people, is speaking out in support of Christians in Nigeria. I just want to play a quick clip from this. This is Bill Maher talking about the lack of media coverage for the Christian slaughter in Nigeria.
I mean, the fact that this issue has not gotten on people's radar.
Right, no one's talking about it.
It's pretty amazing. If you don't know what's going on in Nigeria, your media sources suck. You are in a bubble. And again, I'm not a Christian, but they are systematically killing the Christians in Nigeria. They've killed over 100,000 since 2009. They've burned 18,000 churches. This is so much more. These are their Islamists, Boko Haram. This is so much more of a genocide attempt than what is going on in Gaza. They are literally attempting to wipe out the Christian population of an entire country. Where are the kids protesting this?
Yeah. Thank you. Thank you. Because no one will talk about it, so thank you.
And he's right. Christianity is currently the most persecuted religion globally. And unfortunately, just like the Christians being slaughtered in Nigeria, Christians going to church in Michigan we're the victims of just evil showing its face. And Satan is using, mentally ill folks like the guy that shot up this church, drove his truck into the church and tried to burn it down. He's using people like that to go after Christians. So evil is starting to show its face continually. And that's the story here. The story isn't some guy who wore a Trump shirt, in 2020 is a MAGA terrorist, and he's such a MAGA terrorist and such an evil person that he decided to drive his truck into a church and shoot at Christians. That doesn't make any sense, okay? Because like I said, that doesn't go in line with anything the Republican Party stands for. So that's not the story. The story here is evil attacking Christianity once again. Just like it is doing in Nigeria as we speak, just like it is doing in Syria as we speak, with the active slaughter of Christians and religious minorities after Assad has been overthrown. It's happening globally, okay? That's the story here. And if you're going to continue to ignore the Christian persecution, then we're just going to have to continue to speak up about it. And by the way, that's not going to make Christians any scared. This is going to make us intimidated, and we're not going to become any less inspired to preach the gospel and speak about our faith. It's actually going to embolden us to do that even more. But we're going to take a quick time out, folks, and we're going to come back and answer some more of y'all's text. 833-687-4448. That's 833-68-RIGHT. And we'll be right back.
And we'll do Bible stories at night before they go to bed. So I do believe that's important. However, my parents' faith is not my faith. My parents' faith is not what's going to get me into heaven. My dad's faith wasn't my mom's faith. My mom's faith wasn't her kid's faith. So we have our own faith in the person of Jesus Christ. So I do believe that you can't always lean on your mom and dad if they were Christians or if they were not Christians. You're going to answer for what you do. And what does that mean? When I say what you do, how do I transact with the person of Jesus Christ? Faith is not a work. I can have faith in the person of Jesus Christ and accept what he's done for me on the cross, or I can do what Pilate does, wash my hands and believe the lie that I'm innocent of this man's blood. So there is an aspect of you that is involved. Does that make sense?
There is.
Now, me being involved for just who I am, and everybody's different. Some people might write it down. Some people might memorize it. I would go on deployments, and I would just write because I could memorize better writing. I'd start in Genesis you're on a 6-month deployment to Afghanistan. If we weren't opping, we're watching movies. I can quote movies and all that, and my wife drives her crazy. How do you know these movies? We watch tons of movies on deployment. And I would write just word for word, just what I was reading in my Bible. My granddaddy told me, he said, hey, read a Proverbs a day and it will make you wise. And I gave him, before one deployment, I gave him a Bible I had when I was in high school. I think the only thing I ever read was Proverbs. I'd read Proverbs a day and I would annotate it. And I gave it to him, and literally it was all marked up. And I said, I read a Proverbs a day. And he told me, he said, well, that's good, son, but I didn't mean only read Proverbs. You ought to read the rest of the Bible as well. So there's that aspect too. We pick the things that we like. And I've learned that over time. And now I do the Bible throughout the year in about 10 months. It takes me to go through the whole Bible.
Yeah. So let me ask you,
it sticks.
It does stick. Yeah. And obviously, I would say you definitely had some intentionality attached to it too. But let me ask you this: has there been a time? And I'm really chasing a rabbit right now. But has there been a time? Because God's word never comes back void.
Yeah.
Has there been a time when you were in the thick of something and a verse came back to you that you hadn't even thought of for a while, and it just like, wow, I needed to ponder on that for a minute?
Yeah. So I don't know if it's one that I'd never thought of for a while. I'll use a training example. A lot of times I hate Bud's training examples because a lot of guys that just tell Bud stories is because they have no war stories. That's what I've learned. They've never killed anybody or, actually been in combat. The training stories I'm not big on, but this is one where this would apply, I guess. There was a Master Chief, and I believe his name was Guild, Master Chief Guild, if I remember right. I'm probably getting it wrong. I could text somebody and see. But either way, he was doing a program. He was part of a program where he would mentor Bud students as they were going through. They were trying to get numbers up because training was pretty much the same across the board. Standard the same. The percentage was the same. They increased Bud's classes. We had 366 start with ours in class 264. and 32 actually graduated SQT and got a Trident, right? So, I mean, you're looking at less than 10% by the time you get selected to go to a SEAL team. And then once you get there, now you've got, sniper school. I mean, we lost 60%, 40% of us graduated and became snipers. And these are all SEALs, right? So we lost 60% in sniper school that had to go back to a team and didn't get sniper quad. You lose, like Green Team, selection for development group, what everybody refers to as SEAL Team 6, Special Mission Unit. Those are all SEALs. A lot of them good dudes, but you'll also lose 60% of those, and 40% of those guys will become Special Mission Unit SEALs. So there's always a selection process where there's an attrition rate. Make sense? And they're trying.
Well, there should be.
As it should be. If it was
easy, everybody do it, right?
Exactly right. But what they're doing is they're trying to increase those numbers because we need more SEALs, we need more snipers, we need more guys screening for Special Mission Unit. Right. Because of the way the war was going at the time. This is 2006, and he was going through buds with us, and he would meet with students, and he would say, "Hey guys, look, this is what people do." He would go to the NFL, go all over the place, and figure out what mindset things, and all kinds of things. He'd bring it back and try to present it. And he said, every warrior across, the all of history, all of the planet, all of history, had a mantra. They had something they held to, something they leaned on, whether it was their belief system in a God, whether it was their family, whether it was whatever it is as a mantra. And I'm some dumb redneck kid from Alabama, 19 years old. I didn't know what a mantra was. And he said, what's that one thing that you can hold to that will help you make it through this process? Because if you can hold to something else besides the pain that you're going through, the distress of hypothermia, cold water, getting beat and buzz, all that stuff. If you can hold to something else, you can make it through. But if you concentrate on what you're going through, you'll never make it, right?
And we are back. This is producer JP here, filling in for Phil for the first hour of today's show. Phil had to do some lawyering earlier today, so he should be back here to start the next hour. And if not, then it won't be too much longer after that. So Phil will be here in no time. But 833-687-4448, that is the number for the text line and the call line. Answer some of y'all's texts here. We got Brian from Decatur texting in, said, obviously there are nut jobs on each side of the political equation. Regardless, as I've stated before, if you took all the Democrats in this country and put them on an island vacation at the same time for a week, violent crime in the country would drop 98% overnight. If you just removed LA, Chicago, and other Democrat-run metropolis out of violent crime statistics, our nation would drop dozens of points on the world stage for violent crime. It's a good point right there. It's a good point. And Jerry from Decatur says, everyone knows Rory is a Democrat and doesn't have a lot of public favor despite the buildup by sports media. Roll Tide. Yeah. I mean, listen, I don't know what was specifically said to Rory. I know there's probably a lot of comments towards his family, he claimed. I don't know, man. At a certain point, it's Ryder Cup and the fans are passionate. I don't think it's much more of a story than that. But his team ended up winning, like I said. So I guess it didn't do much to affect him. But, I want to get back to the story here, folks. Tragic situation in Michigan. Like I said yesterday, where several people have been killed, where a church was attacked. A guy rammed his truck into the side of a church, had some gasoline to start a fire, and then started to open fire on churchgoers. Just awful situation. And in this time, I encourage you guys to get in the Word and to get closer to God, because the devil is getting more desperate. Apparently, we're starting to see more attacks on people like Charlie Kirk. We're starting to see more attacks on ICE facilities. We're starting to see attacks on churches. It's unfortunately, it looks like a pretty dark time in terms of, violence starting to ramp up nationwide. But I don't want y'all to get discouraged by that to the point where you're scared to go to the church, where you're scared to act out your faith, and where you're, in a position that you're just all around anxious. That's not what God calls us to do. That's not what God, installs a spirit of optimism and a spirit of, trust in him. And look at the Christians in Nigeria. Like I said, there's an active genocide against Christians in Nigeria. I don't know if y'all have seen the videos of churches that were burned down and those same churchgoers going back to the church where it's actively, burnt to the ground around them, but yet they still go to the remains of the church and still worship in spite of that. And they're not letting these Islamists in Nigeria scare them away from practicing out their faith. I think that's a great, sign that's something that we should all strive to do, in spite of, the political and the persecution of Christians globally. It's important to continue to act out your faith, continue to rely on God, and to not let that intimidate you or shy away from the faith. And that's the way to go. That's how we win. Okay, because if we're not deterred, we being Christians, if we're not deterred by the spiritual warfare that's currently going on globally, then the devil can't win, because evil only wins when Christians are intimidated and are scared, and let the devil win by just installing fear in you. That's not the way to win. The only way through is straight through. Keep going, keep bringing the truth to dark places, and that's how we take back our nation. And we have a spiritual revival in our nation, because after the assassination of Charlie Kirk, I don't know if y'all have seen it too, but there's been a spiritual revival nationwide. I can feel it. The amount of people going back to church, the amount of people that realize there's something dark going on. And, Franklin Graham said it best after the assassination of Charlie Kirk. It looks like the devil overplayed his hand. I think that's true. I think in the wake of Charlie Kirk's death, more people have come back to Christ. And unfortunately, we're seeing more attacks, but I think people are just seeing those as reasons to get back in the Word and go back to church and get right with God. And that's the answer to it. So how do we take back this nation, and how do we start to have a spiritual revival? It's the Christians get engaged. The Christians step up. The Christians start to bring the truth to the darkest places of our society. And we start to help these people that are lost and have been indoctrinated to a point where they've tied themselves up into a knot and they don't know what to do. They're looking for purpose. And those hurt people hurt people. Then they then take out, their pain on others and innocent people who are just speaking the truth and believe in the truth. But that can't intimidate us. The way we win is to get engaged as Christians politically and culturally, and we win the culture battle, and we move forward. We march forward, no matter the persecution, no matter the state of things spiritually, because the way to win a spiritual warfare is to fight back. And not fight back physically with arms, fight back with the truth and with our mouths and with our actions. That's how we take back this nation and we have a spiritual revival. So I hope you guys are encouraged by that. All right. Well, like I said, Phil should be back relatively soon. He could be back to start this next segment, but if not, it won't be too long after that. So appreciate you guys, and we'll be right back.
Kind of his, and I'm not saying I necessarily agree with all that, but that's what he was putting out. And so I prayed to God. I mean, I knew the one thing I held to was God as a Christian. Grew up as a Christian, right? Got saved when I was 6 years old. Asked Jesus into my heart. Like, God, what could my mantra be? I think it has to be in you. I'm here for my family, for me. I want to do this, but it's in you. What is it? It was 2 Corinthians 12:9, I believe, is the verse that says, it's when Paul was asking God, he's saying, hey, take away these thorns in my flesh, right? Whatever the issue was. People, some theologians say believe it was a sight. Some people believe it was other things. But he said, take away these thorns in my flesh. He asked 3 times, and God 3 times said no. And then God says to Paul, he says, my strength, this is 2 Corinthians 12:9, my strength is sufficient for you, or my grace is sufficient for you. My strength is made perfect in your weakness. And I thought, that's it. And so that is a scripture that the Lord gave me in that time that I really didn't even, I'm sure I'd read it before, but I was a young kid. It's not like it was just brought up to my mind. I remember specifically reading that as I'm praying, reading that in a Bible, in my study Bible, and being in 2 Corinthians, and that scripture stuck out at me. And so that's what all right, God, your grace is sufficient for me. Your strength will be made perfect in my weakness. And that's in that book. Buds wasn't that hard as far as a physical standard. Like I could probably even now at 40 years old pass most of the standards. I can still do the O course. I could probably do first and maybe second phase 4-mile time run times. I could probably still do the swim. It's not actually that hard. It's the continuation of it through injury, through constant work that makes it so hard. They make you bad at things that you are often good at. That's why so many athletes struggle with it. So anyway, that's probably the best example I can give of a scripture that
that's
I held
a good one.
to.
And I had when I was my first tour downrange when I was mobbing out of Bragg We had some SEER instructors that that spent time with us, and I'll never forget. And I've actually talked about this before. I don't even remember what all they told me. I don't remember how to do my search and rescue dot, but I probably could now. But the reality is, one thing that stuck out with me was he said at one point he like just stopped in the middle of it, like it was an unplanned moment, and he goes, "Hey, let me just say, if you don't already have something bigger than yourself that you believe in, you better get it right now before you go downrange, because if they ever take you, you better have something to hang on to that's more than you."
Yeah, that's right. Yeah.
And you know, for me, that was my faith.
Yeah.
And for me, that was mine in downrange was Psalm 91, the soldier psalm they call it.
That was my wife's on my first deployment.
And my wife's the one who gave it to me.
Okay.
I don't think I even knew Psalm 91 until she gave it to me.
No, I didn't. My wife can quote it word for word still.
Absolutely.
We were married. How old was she? I think I was 21. I might have been 22, and she was 19 when we got married. And we got married, and 2 months later, I rolled to Afghanistan, and it was a great deployment. Man, it was the Wild West. We're killing everybody we came in contact with. Those bad guys. It was what you trained for. It's what you desired. It's what you were going to do. It was great. Now hindsight being 2020, it's like, should we have even really been there? Now knowing what we've done, or at least seeing how they pulled out of Afghanistan. And but at the time, man, it's what you wanted to do as a young SEAL. And my wife, though, she knew that. She knew that what we were going into, what we were doing, and she prayed Psalm 91 every day. That was her verse.
Charlene did the same. My wife did the exact same thing. You look at my notes. That's a perfect segue. Let me do this.
No, I can't even read your notes.
Tell me. I can read I'm the only one who can read my notes.
That's important. That's the only thing that matters.
So tell me about your wife. So y'all met, and she's a team wife, obviously.
Yeah, she is.
Which is not easy.
No. Yeah, she. We met. We were just talking about this the other day. I think she's 3.5 years younger than I am. I'm 39 right now, and she's about to turn 36. So we met. She was 18, and I was, whatever that would have been, 21 into 22. I had just I'd been a SEAL for like 6 months, maybe 8 months, right? I did my first.
So you were still a SEAL pup.
I was a SEAL pup, man. I was a new guy. I did my first, deployment, or what they would count as a deployment. I checked in at the end of an Iraq deployment, stayed in Germany doing working with the Group 1 leadership as they're doing a pass-through. Decompression stop is what they called it for the whole team. So I stayed there as the whole team rotated through from Iraq. And I can't remember where we went into in Iraq, but I went with a master chief. Me and just a master chief went into Iraq. We had to check in and do something, and I can't remember what we did, and then we flew over to Germany. It was only there for a week. And that's one point I like to make in these podcasts. Guys or anytime I talk, guys will be like, oh, yeah, Iraq, Afghanistan, or whatever we are. Just because I've got an Iraqi ribbon, Operation Iraqi Freedom, or whatever. You got guys that have that stuff all the time. They got their combat action badge or their combat action ribbon or whatever. Just because you were in a country where combat was happening doesn't mean that you were in combat, right? And so there is a lot of that goes on. Just because I was in Iraq doesn't mean that I was doing what the boys were doing in Salter City, that deployment. I checked in at the tail end of that, and then I went to Germany. So just because you're a part of it doesn't mean you were doing it. And there is a misconception with that a lot of times. One, with how people receive it, but also, two, with maybe even how guys present it sometimes. So there's probably I don't know. I like to make sure that that's understood. Went to Germany, went to get back from that, and was selected to go to sniper school as a new guy, which is very rare. And so I went to sniper school, and that was when I met my wife. And
you met her at sniper school?
Yeah. So before I went to sniper school, I had to bring all the weapons that we were bringing back from. They landed at one of it might have been Fort Bragg. But they landed at one of the Army bases. I think it was Fort Bragg. They landed there. Me and another guy, a buddy of mine, I won't say his name, he's at Red Squadron still, or he was at Red Squadron. He might be, he was an instructor at Green Team not too long ago, so he might still be over there. But me and him flew out to pick up those weapons for SEAL Team 3 and escort them back to the West Coast because they landed at the East Coast at one of the Army bases. And when we flew out to pick those up, they let him fly back with them by themselves because I didn't go on leave when I graduated SQT. I checked in pretty much immediately I was at the team for like a week, painting bathrooms and doing stupid stuff, with a couple of guys. And then we went to the tail end of the Iraq deployment into that Germany thing. So they said, hey, since you didn't get to go on leave, fly over here with Chris, and y'all pick up those weapons, account for them. I helped him inventory them. He can fly back with them by himself because we're going to have somebody meet him in San Diego, and you can drive home. My mom and dad came and picked me up in North Carolina. They drove to North Carolina, picked me up, and drove me home, and I stayed at home for 7 days. They didn't even charge me any leave for it.
All right. Well, folks, Phil will be here the start of next segment. He's currently on the way here after he had his lawyering he had to do. So he'll be here at the start of next segment, so make sure to stay tuned for that. We talked a lot today about this past shooting yesterday at a Latter-day Saints church in Michigan, a tragic situation. There's a lot of other big news to talk about today. As of right now, actually, Trump and Netanyahu are meeting, and they have actually released a plan for Hamas to agree to potentially bring an end to the war in Gaza. It has a hostage return part of the deal. It also has a part where Israel to deoccupy Gaza, transitionally, and in the meantime of that, ensure that Hamas does not have a terrorist running their country or their territory, and then have a pathway to eventual statehood. So it looks like there's a plan starting to come together on the Gaza front. We'll see if Hamas rejects it or if they accept the deal. But Trump has given them a 72-hour period to agree to the deal, release the hostages, and start the end of the war. So more to come on that. There's also, federal troops going into Oregon to protect ICE facilities, and the Oregon legislatures are they're fighting it, of course, and claiming there's no need for them to do that. So there's a lot of stuff going on in the news that I know Phil will be talking about when he gets back, so I don't want to spoil the well with it too much. In the meantime, though, before we do that, I did want to talk about something a little more lighthearted that broke today, which is pretty crazy. Paul Feinbaum, all y'all know old Paul Feinbaum, potentially running for U.S. Senate for Alabama in 2026. That's right. Paul Feinbaum is, quote, considering a 2026 U.S. Senate run in Alabama, says 1819 News. And Paul Feinbaum said that Charlie Kirk's assassination prompted this consideration. So the longtime college football commentator said that he had been reached out to by folks in Washington, D.C., earlier this year, and was asked if he'd be interested in talking, or getting into politics. And Paul Feinbaum, he said he didn't know. It's not something he had really thought he'd ever do. But then he said that the Charlie Kirk assassination really, sparked his interest, and that he's thinking about it every day, he claims. Paul Feinbaum is apparently seriously considering a run for the U.S. Senate seat in 2026 for Alabama. This is a field of Jared Hudson, Steve Marshall, Barry Moore. They're all running for Tommy Tuberville's now vacant seat as Governor-elect. Tuberville really is running for governor of Alabama in 2026. It looks like the field is going to get even more crowded, as potentially Paul Feinbaum is going to throw his name in the hat to be the senator of Alabama. This is pretty crazy. I did not anticipate this at all. He said that he has just moved and registered in Alabama, and that he is actually technically, a registered Republican in North Carolina as of this hour, but that he's in the process of registering for Alabama. So there's going to be some residency issues, I'm sure, as there always is with big names like this entering the field. But what are y'all thoughts on this? 833-687-4448. What are your thoughts on Paul Feinbaum potentially becoming at least a candidate for senator of Alabama? That's just, I don't know. You see, when you got tested guys like Steve Marshall and Barry Moore, who have a conservative voting record to run on, Barry Moore, the first guy nationwide to endorse Donald Trump. You got Steve Marshall, who was actually at the courthouse with Trump when he was served his federal indictment. So these are two guys that Trump knows, and they got a lot of street cred in terms of conservatism. But then you got Jared Hudson, who is sort of a newcomer. He ran for sheriff in Jefferson County, but other than that, he's relatively unknown statewide. But then you got Paul Feinbaum. What is Paul Feinbaum's street cred in terms of politics? He claims to be a conservative. He claims to be a Trump supporter. He said that he was a little bit intimidated to speak out about his politics, as we've seen ESPN put a muzzle on conservatives that work for the company several times. Look at Sage Steele, for example. So Apparently, he has been a conservative for quite some time, but has been a little bit scared to speak out about it. But now, potentially, he can run. He's maybe thinking about running for senator of Alabama. I don't know. This is, there is a certain sense of a outsider of politics that is intriguing. But if you're Paul Feinbaum and your job has been talking football for all these years, and just sort of a shock jock to a certain extent of in the college football world, it's, I don't know, shock jock may be a little bit too much, but you know what I'm saying. Paul Feinbaum is not a guy who is known to be serious in the sense of entering something like politics. That is the definition of seriousness, and actually, fight for Alabama on the national platform. I don't know. Let me know y'all's thoughts. I know we see Dave from Capshaw here texting in, said, not a fan of Paul Firebaum. Don't know if he meant to say Firebaum or not, but there you go. We'll see. There's a lot of talk of Bruce Pearl potentially entering the race, but he has said that he's not going to do that. So it looks like Paul Feinbaum, if he were to enter the race, would be really the main political outsider entering the field. So it could be interesting. Although a statewide name, Paul Feinbaum, he's got the name ID. The other guys like Steve Marshall who have a good name ID, relative to politics statewide. But Paul Feinbaum, everybody in the state knows Paul Feinbaum. Whether you're into politics or not, Paul Feinbaum is a well-known name statewide. So he'll have a name ID to run on. But other than that, we're just kind of, we're speculating a little bit what he's going to fight for. Whereas the other candidates in the field, we have a little bit more of a sense on what they believe and how they're going to vote, how they're going to fight for conservatism and fight for Alabama on the national stage. So we'll just have to see. But I thought that was an interesting story to talk about for our Southeastern audience here of Paul Feinbaum potentially entering the race for Senate in Alabama. We'll just have to see. But we're going to go ahead and take a break here, folks. And Phil should be joining us here on the other side here. If you got any texts in the meantime, 833-687-4448. That's 833-68-RIGHT. And we'll be right back.
Let me go.
So she was back here. She's an Alabama girl?
She's an Alabama girl.
Okay.
And I met her during that time. My brother and his girlfriend at the time, now wife, somehow connected us, and her family went to my dad's church where he pastored at. We met up, went on one date, and then we just started talking, and somehow the Lord made it happen. 6 or 7 months later, I graduate sniper school, have a big family shoot, and we had been dating. I'd already gotten a ring. I called her. Her dad came up with my dad and brothers because they let him shoot all the sniper guns. They do like a family day. None of the girls came up. It was just my dad, my brothers, and Lauren's dad. And we're fishing in my buddy's pond up there that I'm still friends with, Troy Dehart. And I said, hey, man, to Greg, my father-in-law, I said, hey, man, I'm going to ask Lauren to marry me if it's okay with you. And he's like, oh, you better ask her. Just went back to fishing. That was it. So that's kind of, that was.
He was in his happy place. Why bother him with that?
Yeah, that's right. That's right. And then about 8 months later, we got married before
awesome.
I deployed to Afghanistan. So, yeah, she was with me from the start, really, of my SEAL career, almost the start.
Team wife's not easy. I said that a minute ago. My wife, I've said that she's a rock. I mean, I've got multiple deployments, and she held down the fort. And at the same time, I never came home not knowing who my kids' teachers were, what their grades were, what the latest ins and outs of life were, because she made everything just seem so relevant and updated me constantly.
Man. Yeah, dude,
but she also kept all the bills paid and the yard mowed and the whole thing, man. I mean, but at the same time, you were active duty in the teams. That's a high up tempo life. How was it for her and for the marriage?
I mean, it was good. I mean, she misses the teams a lot of times. She liked because her parents were divorced, and so she bounced around between her grandparents, her mom, her dad, and she's got a good family and had a good life. Close with her brother. Her brother's a good dude. Works for Alabama Power, pretty high up in Alabama Power. But Trent's a good guy, and we have close relationship with him. There's never like bad relationship with anybody in the family, or at least on her side. She just wasn't settled. So team guy life for her and team wife life was actually pretty good because she was used to that. Going to be at mom's, going to be at dad's, going with my grandparents. She was used to kind of that bouncing around, and so she would do that, and
God built her for it.
Kind of. It's almost like he kind of knew what she was going to go into, and she would have never thought she'd be that. Now, she hates it when I deploy, hates it when I go somewhere. She pitches a fit if I ever say I'm going overseas to do anything, right? She doesn't, but she was actually pretty good at it. She misses the community team guy life. She does miss that. She even talks about it now. We didn't have kids while I was in the teams. That was one thing. She did not want to have kids in the teams because she got to know so many women. We lost dudes all the time, So I say all the time. We lost dudes regularly, and she went to those funerals with me. We went to funerals and put your trident in a coffin, and she knew their wives, and some of these guys had kids, and now daddy's gone from it. She just didn't. For her, of course, we were married. She was 19 at the time. I think I was 22 into 23, around that age range, and we didn't. She just did not want to have kids in that life with me deploying. That was probably the biggest thing, is it being hard to start a family.
Did you have connectivity? I mean, it's crazy, modern deployments. My granddad went to World War II. He was a glider rider.
Talk to anybody.
And he was gone for 3 years.
Yeah.
And I came home when it was done. But did you have connectivity? Could you call home, email, that kind of thing?
We did, whenever somebody would die in country, that, which happened pretty regularly, you go River City, and not be able to talk for a week or 3 until the next of kin was notified.
Right.
I mean, we would still talk some, you call out on sat phone, different things, but generally speaking, it was hit or miss, but we did have connectivity. We were on a fob one day, and I was talking to her on the phone on a green line, and, a little bit of a delay. We're just talking, and all of a sudden here, a mortar came in, or a, recoilless rifle rocket came in and hit, and I was like, hey, I got to go. We got to get to our fighting positions, and she's like, what was that? And he just hung up the phone and bounced. So she did deal with stuff like that she talks about now that she didn't like at the time.
My wife tells the exact same story. I'm sitting on the roof of our safe house in Afghanistan, where my team was located, on a sat phone talking to her, and all of a sudden something went cha-choom.
Yeah.
And she goes, what was that? I said, nothing, baby. I'm looking at one of my guys going, what was that?
Yeah, got to go.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. We did have we had the same connectivity, and we had the same comms blackouts if we lost somebody. And I'll never forget, I had a special phone because I did a lot of interconnectivity on my second tour in Baghdad, and we had Sadr City and parts of Rasafa district. And
where were you in Sadr City?
04.
Okay, all right, yes.
But and it was a mess.
Oh,
and we
yeah,
lost
man.
some good guys, but we had one particular day where it was a coordinated ambush. We had IED strikes followed by small arms and RPGs that took out 3 of our guys. And we are back. Phil Williams, Rightside Radio, solid, conservative, and just plain right. Saving the world one soundbite at a time. I tell you who's saving the world is JP. Saved my hide today.
Nah.
JP, thank you very much.
Well, lawyering has to get done.
Well, lawyering has to get done, especially when it's my motion.
It's true. Yeah.
And judge sets it, and we already moved it one time before, and I couldn't actually ask him to do that again.
Yes.
So my clients deserve to have their motion heard, and there we were. Thank you all, by the way, for your indulgence, as I have apparently competing livelihoods that I like to say that I have 2 full-time jobs, and every once in a while they don't like each other. But lawyer Phil today, still sitting here in studio wearing my lawyer uniform.
So then they know you're not lying, because
I'm not. I'm wearing my lawyer clothes. What'd you cover, JP? What'd y'all talk about?
Well, we talked about the tragic shooting in Michigan at the Church of Latter-day Saints. We talked about that for segment 3 and 4. But then I tried to lighten the mood a little bit. Last segment, we talked about Paul Feinbaum potentially running for Senate in Alabama. But that's pretty much it. That's the gist of it.
Just so you know, I already sent word to a couple of stations I know that have Feinbaum on and said we got dibs on his slot.
That's smart. Yeah.
Yeah, so golly bum, there's a lot to choose from there, but and then there's also apparently breaking news about Israel.
Yep, I briefly talked about that as well. What we know,
they found a framework for peace, is what we're understanding.
Yes, yeah, and a framework for Israel to slowly deoccupy Gaza as long as Hamas, transfers over the hostages, and then there's supposedly a board to ensure that a terrorist organization doesn't take over Gaza again. And then if that is the case, then there's a pathway to statehood eventually. So that's what we know so far, pretty much.
So they're giving them a pathway to statehood if they can comply and look like they're going to be good little Palestinians.
Yeah, if they transfer the hostages and then put a peaceful government in charge, then there could be a pathway to statehood. But Trump has said they've got 72 hours to agree to that, or then Israel's going to have to finish the job, is what he said. So,
well, I heard too. I just heard it a minute ago after I came in. I was getting it updated in the car that that the dialogue between Netanyahu and Trump was apparently very positive, very favorable. Netanyahu was basically attributing much of the success of this to the Trump administration working the way they have, and thanking him for his efforts. So nothing but positives there. Mm-hmm. And you know what, though? What's interesting is there's going to be people out there that cannot allow something to be considered having been done well by the Trump administration. They won't even abide by it. They'll be saying, we need a Palestinian statehood. They're getting a pathway. We need to have, Israel out. They're getting a Arab peace force.
Yeah.
And we need peace in Palestine. You're getting it. Mm-hmm. And they'll still say Trump bad.
Which apparently Trump has said that many Arab nations have supported this plan, and actually they all wanted Trump to be in charge of the board that I think it's called the Board for Peace, that is in charge of making sure a peaceful government goes over Gaza. So they're actively supporting it and actively wanting Trump to lead the charge on that. So I think that's it's a bit different than what Biden when Biden was in charge of countries saying, no, we want the United States president to lead this.
This is not unheard of. I mean, we still have, people don't realize, like, for instance, my son, your cousin, has already done a tour in the Sinai Peninsula because the Sinai Peninsula has an occupying peace force because of the wars between Egypt and Israel back in the day. You got, of course, the DMZ between North and South Korea. So it's not unheard of for there to be these frameworks for peace that establish a sort of a no-fly zone and put in place certain parameters, and even have security details from approved nations who will take part in having some kind of a force protection posture to actually see it go forward. Very interesting. You know what? If they don't give Trump the Nobel Peace Prize, then it doesn't mean anything at all.
It's true. I mean, Obama got one, and
Obama got one for being in office for 16 weeks.
Exactly. Yeah. And Trump would, I mean, this and Ukraine are the two biggest wars going on globally right now. So if Trump is able to bring an end to the war in Gaza, I think that's grounds for a Nobel Peace Prize.
I would agree. Wow. More to come on that one. We'll unpack that one as time goes on. But again, JP, thanks so much for covering down in the first hour plus. So I literally got, I had a massive teleconference I had to be on. That one started late. I had to get my hearing pushed to 2 when it was supposed to have been at 1:30. And then so I had to go do the teleconference in the jury room at the courthouse. And then I'm doing that one. They just start that one until 15 minutes late. And then it ran until 10 minutes after 2. So by then I'm already late for the hearing that had been pushed back to 2 to accommodate me. And then I run in the courtroom. I'm like, hey, judge. And then the guy that I'm opposing wanted to repeat his own arguments 15 times. And so at some point I just realized I'm going to get there when I get there.
So all your lives don't agree with one another. They
don't.
Yeah.
They like to conflict. My professions like to conflict.
It would be interesting if they didn't, though. So.
No, it would not. Text lines are active today, I guess. 833-687-4448. That's 833-68-RIGHT. All right, so fill me in real quick on Feinbaum. I did see the article.
Yeah.
I saw that Feinbaum, was it a casual comment, or did he go on Clay Travis and say, hey, was it on Outkick, I guess?
It was on Clay Travis's, I don't know if it was his podcast or it was a set up formal interview. So, and it looks like this was the subject of the interview. So this was not just a flippant.
So this was a purposeful discussion as opposed to, I don't know, I might do it myself. He didn't it wasn't in passing.
No, it was a purposeful discussion. Yeah. And he said that he had been reached out to earlier this year by folks in DC about running, and said that he was kind of like, I don't know. I've never seen myself as a politician, but then claims after the Charlie Kirk assassination that has really sparked his interest. And he said the last 2 weeks that it's been the only thing he's been thinking about if he wants to run. So
I don't blame you for that. I don't blame anybody for being galvanized by the Charlie Kirk assassination, because I think we're going to see more and more people are going to find that to be the catalyst for why they stepped into something they wouldn't have otherwise done. That being said, I don't think anybody in D.C. called Feinbaum and said, hey, you ought to run for U.S. Senate. I don't think anybody in D.C. did.
Yeah.
Nobody.
If they did, that would be really interesting. Why they would choose Feinbaum to do that?
I'm like, come on.
Yeah.
Um,
But I think there's going to be a residency debate, when is there or not. He claims that at this hour, he's still a registered Republican in North Carolina, although he lives in Alabama and has a home in Mountain Brook. That I think he said he's in the process of becoming a registered Republican in Alabama. So I don't know. I don't know what the residency situation is. But yeah, I think there was a very purposeful discussion. I don't think they would have like a formal interview like that if he wasn't like about to pull the trigger soon and he was testing the waters and seeing, I don't know.
or is this a Stephen A? Is it a Stephen A? I'm running for president. I don't know. I might run for. What do you think? I should run for president. I mean, is this just a Stephen A. Clickbait?
No, because I think Stephen A. has been asked by people like Bill Maher and others have been asking him, and I think he's kind of playing it up a little bit. Nobody was asking Paul Feinbaum to run for senator, at least publicly. So I think it's a bit different. This is Paul initiating it. So
Okay, maybe an Auburn fan would have asked him to run because they want him out of the way. They're tired of his commentary.
That's an interesting way to get it.
Now it's starting to come together. I don't know, man. So we now have what do we in that U.S. Senate race for Tommy Tuberville's seat that he's soon to vacate when he becomes the anointed one and takes the governorship. That is going to be what we have 4. Is it 4 right now? We have Steve Marshall, Jared Hudson, Barry Moore, and Morgan Murphy. Morgan.
Yep, I forgot about Morgan who entered the race last week.
Is it Morgan Murphy?
I have to double check.
I should know that. It just I'm coming out of a courtroom, so my head is in right now section 35 of the code.
Yes, it's Morgan Murphy.
Yeah, Morgan Murphy, who used to work for Tuberville, and he was also a liaison on the Ukraine situation, I believe.
Yeah.
I don't know, man. We'll see. It's a crowded field. He looks like he's qualified to run, but he's also never run in Alabama, so he's coming in. And I'm curious to see what kind of name ID he's going to get.
Well, and I said this last segment. We got the other guys who have a conservative street cred.
Oh wait, hang on a second. We have a screenshot right now.
There we go.
Paul Feinbaum is on Fox News.
Yep, that's the interview.
That's it. They didn't really try hard for this podcast studio. They got 2 wooden chairs in an empty room.
Hey, that's authentic. But he claims to have been a Trump guy his whole time, the whole time that Trump's been in politics, but he's been a little bit scared to voice it because of ESPN and how they've dealt with conservatives. So we're just taking Paul's word that he's a conservative versus guys like Steve Marshall, Barry Moore, Jared Hudson, who have street cred to show their conservatism. Yeah. So I don't know. We'll just have to see.
I don't know. We'll see. I don't know. All I know is this. We got a pretty deep bench. I said that before, but it's still true. We got a pretty deep bench right now in that U.S. Senate seat. I mean, you could put any one of those guys in that office and feel like you elected somebody pretty strong. Every one of them with a different background. And by the way, you're not looking at a whole bunch of long-term politicos, right? You're seeing people that have gone in and out of politics, people that have been in politics for a bit. But this is a dynamic race. It's become far more dynamic than I expected it to be. And I really thought there'd be a couple of also-rans and then the top tier. And right now, we got like a room full of top tiers. Crazy. We're taking a break. Phil Williams, Rightside Radio. Y'all stay tuned. We will be right back. And so the comms blackout went in. Well, my wife, the phone that I carried had the ability to call in. And I told her, I said, don't ever call in, hon, unless it's an emergency. If I call you, we'll talk, but don't call me. But if it's an emergency, just know you can. Well, she called that night because she's literally watching the news, looking at patches on the shoulder and realizing, oh my gosh, I think I know where that is. And I think that's Phil's unit. And she called me that night. Oh, it was a rough one.
Yeah.
But it's hard for the wife sometimes being back home.
Well, you got to think you're the one, you're not in the know. You're not in the know, but you're together. It says that's why Scripture tells us that the man leaves his parents so the two can become one flesh. So you join, you become one flesh, and we're a family. We are, I still have my mom and dad, still respect my mom and dad, but now I am the headship of this, and she is part of that, and we're one flesh. And when you go on these deployments, these wartime deployments, you're pulled apart, and she's living in the unknown all the time. Now you know what's going on, right? And you're doing it. So that's that takes a strong person, not just a strong woman, just a strong person in general. When I say person, because you got kids that deal with the same thing too. They're part of that unit, that family unit. I don't say team for family. My wife likes saying team, and I'm like, no, family's not a team. A family's a family, which in my opinion is different than a team. I was a team guy for my entire career. That's what they call us. That's our nicknames, team guys. I know what a team is like. A family's not like a team. It's even deeper. It's more. It's a deeper rooted thing than a team. And a team is pretty deep. We can agree on that. Your family is one level deeper, and that's why we're born into the family of Christ. We're part of God's family in the person of Jesus Christ. It's more than a team. We're not teamed up with Christ. We're in His family. And so I don't know if that makes sense.
No, it makes perfect sense. Let me ask you, let me segue off that. I'm going to chase a rabbit again. So you're a team guy.
Yeah.
And now you got a family, and God saw fit to make sure you had all girls.
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
So you come from team guy, law enforcement, doing all the alpha male stuff.
Yeah.
And yet you go home and you are so outnumbered right now.
Yeah, man. Well, I got a buddy he's got daughters too. He said, it just means I was man enough to blow the balls off of them. That's what he always says. So, sorry for the ladies that listen to this, but I always think it's funny. No, man, I wouldn't trade those girls for anything. I mean, it is different. Love my wife, have my wife, but those girls,
How old are they roughly?
9, 6, and 3.
Awesome.
So yeah, we got 9, 6, and 3, and
girls are hard too.
They're hard.
You wait, man, they're gonna be teenagers.
What I've learned, I think, in my brothers have sons, and they also have daughters. So I got nieces and nephews. We have more girls than boys in our family, the grandkids side. So all the cousins, we all get together. It's all girls, and just 4 boys now but there's a baby. He's Bennett is a little over a year. I think he's 18 months. So I say that to say those boys, I've noticed that they're destructive, but they're actually easier as children, is what we notice. I say they're easier as children. They're harder as little children because they're destructive than girls, because girls are not as destructive. But what I've seen now, looking at the teenage side of it, boys just kind of stay the same. You kind of know what you're getting. Yeah, they might be destructive, but boys are just kind of the same all the way through it. Those girls, they shift. There is a shift, and the drama comes in, and I've already seen it with a 9-year-old. I can't imagine, the teenage years. I mean, her and my wife fighting over like how our hair is going to be done or clothes. The 3-year-old fighting over shoes. This is what girls do. What I've learned about girls, I actually asked ChatGPT this. I said, why do girls? You
went to the Oracle.
I went to the Oracle, ChatGPT. Why do girls always leave the drawers open? And ChatGPT, is that something in your house?
Yeah.
Dude, I am going to have a panic attack over drawers and cabinets in the house. It's pure laziness, I think, is what it is. A lack of discipline and laziness.
I refuse to affirm or deny anything that you just said.
But it's just like a clutter bomb. I would almost rather stuff just be destroyed. It's just like a clutter bomb of mess, all this little knick-knack crap everywhere, drawers open. That, to me...
Out there, you are listening to Rightside Radio, solid conservative, just plain right. And we are back. Phil Williams, Rightside Radio, solid conservative and just plain right. Just covering down on some major ground across the Southeast U.S. of A. Y'all talk about this show, this show. I mean, it goes from Huntsville back over to Chattanooga. I'm talking about from Tuscaloosa back over to Gadsden. I mean, all the way down to that loveliest little village on the plains we call Auburn, straight across the line from there to what we all call once again Fort Benning. Big old patches in North Georgia and Mississippi all thrown in just for good measures. And that's just the radio. That's just the radio footprint. Then there's all y'all out there in the whole wide world going to the World Wide Web, logging in on the live stream in places like X and YouTube and Rumble and Facebook and our website, rightsidemedia.org. And then, oh, by the way, all you podcasters, all you guys who catch it after the fact, catching up on what you missed or just hearing it twice. The bottom line is wherever you catch this show, it means the world to us. Thank you very much. You're the reason why we do what we do, just to be perfectly honest. John from Huntsville checked in. Did you already read John's? John from Huntsville?
Not his most recent one, no.
Paul Feinbaum running for Senate is the funniest joke I've ever heard. Thanks for making me laugh, JP. I really need a good laugh.
Well, there you go.
There you go. Dave from Calfshaw says, so the useless nations has been useless in all things Gaza. That would be true. I'm pretty sure the useless nations has been useless in a lot of things. They're good at taking up space in New York. There's that.
Pretty much it.
There you go. Chris from Gadsden checking in. I knew he would. He heard me. Yeah, he says, about having court, I will get you some cheese to go with your wine. Thank you, my lawyer brethren, who has no compunction about issuing me a dish of grief. Thank you very much. He knows the deal. He has to go to court. Check from Huntsville says, there's an opportunity here by simply announcing that you're running for the senatorial seat. By simply announcing that you're running for the senatorial seat and picking up the media exposure, you will in turn pick up your listener base and expand it. See, that's what I'm saying. That's exactly what I was saying, Chuck, when I said clickbait. Could it be just clickbait to up his game?
Could be. I mean, he's been in the media business for many years, so I don't know. Could be just another maneuver to gain more listeners. I don't know. But then again, does he need many more listeners? I feel like everybody in the SEC, his audience, knows who he is.
Well, right now, Will Kane on Fox is talking about this thing, and he's got Clay Travis on right now to say basically, Clay, is this real?
I find it funny Clay Travis was the guy. I mean, I understand it, but I don't know. They picked Clay Travis to do that interview with.
Who would he do it with?
I don't know. I mean,
Stephen A.
Dean Cain. Dean Cain was the one that did the interview with Tuberville for when he announced he was running. So I don't know. I mean, it makes sense for Clay Travis, but it's like, hey, Clay, you want to come talk about me running for Senate? It's like, it's interesting. I wonder who set that up that way for him to.
Hey, by the way, on the other split screen is what I was going to talk about in one of my dippers if we get to it today, the potential for a government shutdown. Schumer and Hakeem Jeffries are now talking at the podium or the mic right outside the White House after they had a Trump meeting in the Oval Office. So Trump did call all four of the leaders of the House and the Senate, minority and majority, in to speak to them. I don't know what the result is. All I can see is I'm getting the usual facial expressions from Jeffries and Schumer at the microphone. We'll find out soon. The government could possibly shut down for a period of time starting tomorrow night, if I'm not mistaken. So yeah, more on that. Grace from Madison says, what?
I think she was talking about an earlier text about Ilhan Omar in response to my monologue. So
okay, is Ilhan Omar now an illegal alien? What are we doing here? What's the deal?
I think she was just talking. I mean, I mentioned her in my monologue, but Grace doesn't like Ilhan Omar and wants to strip her. So
okay, of her citizenship.
Yes,
thank you. Let's clarify.
Yes, that's what I yes, of her citizenship. Yes.
Dave from Capshaw again says, hey, Phil, I'm not doing anything. Maybe I'll run for Senate. There you go. Give him some applause. We're
actually
in for
having issues with the sound effects today.
So. Oh, really?
Yeah.
What the heck?
I don't know. I didn't have time.
I'll leave the studio for an hour.
I didn't have time to look at it because I was doing the show, but yeah.
All right. How far did you get in the discussion of the shooting in church yesterday? Where have you already gone with it? I don't want to repeat everything, but just give me a quick gist of where y'all been.
Well, so we talked about all the details of what we know. 4 people dead, and how he rammed his truck into the side with gasoline to inside a fire, and then also opened fire on the churchgoers. But then also there's been an attempt by the left to find pictures of this guy wearing a Trump shirt in 2020, which some people are speculating could be even doctored. Apparently he had a Trump sign on his backyard if you go to the street view of his house. So they're automatically trying to claim that this was a MAGA guy and the MAGA terrorism incident, which doesn't track. I mean, him to shoot up, I think this was just unfortunately a mentally ill veteran who did something stupid. And it's tragic that happened, but then we segued that into the attack on Christianity globally.
Yeah.
Linking that with what we're seeing in Nigeria, with really, there's no other way to call it than just like an attempted Christian genocide in Nigeria right now.
Yeah.
And this was just another instance of evil showing its face against Christianity. And that's the gist of what we covered.
So that's all. I want to talk about a little bit of that and just add some more commentary to it, just to give it some, to sort of flesh it out a little more. Because what you said was spot on. By the way, do we know, has there been any indication of motive or of like a manifesto left behind or a suicide note or anything?
Nothing.
Okay. And he was taken out by police, if I'm not mistaken. He didn't end his own life. He was taken out. Like, was he in a gunfight with police, or did they just confront him and shoot him?
I think while he was opening fire on the churchgoers, police just took him out.
Okay.
Is what I understand.
Okay. Well, so I got a couple of thoughts on this to add to what JP said, and I'll expand it even from Christianity. I mean, I think if you look at, well, first of all, Trump spoke at the UN General Assembly just a week and a half ago, maybe last week, and one of the things he said in his excoriation of the uselessness of the United Nations was, "You've done nothing." I'm paraphrasing slightly, but he basically said, "You've done nothing to prevent the persecution of Christians worldwide." And then you've got that combined with all of the anti-Semitism we're seeing around the world, but especially like on college campuses and everything else, all the pro-Palestine, liberation movement, the from the river to the sea, all that crap. The reality is the anti-Semitism on the rise has been amazing to watch. I mean, like to see it in real time. And then you've got just 3 weeks ago, you had that crazed transgender who's scrawling things on his weapon like, "Where's your God now?" and all that stuff, shooting children who are praying in a Catholic church. And then you've got Charlie Kirk, who I know was in part a political statement, but I also believe that was an assault against someone who stood up for his faith and the values of his faith and promoted that as a part of his stance on everything. The core principle for everything he stood for.
Yep.
And then you have yesterday, the guy running his truck in the door of a Mormon church. What I'm saying is, taking all that into account with the Mormons, the Catholics, the anti-Semitism, the Christians, all of it, I think what we're looking at is an assault on faith. The idea that someone should have a God that they lean on, a God in whom they trust, a God in whom they look to for salvation. There is in my opinion, this is as much a spiritual warfare battle as anything.
Yep.
And I think what we're looking at right now is truly an assault on faith. There are people who are at worship who are being shot while they're at worship. And I don't know that we've seen that in the United States. Now there was a Dylan Ruth guy who, we understand was a racist. And that was 5 years ago?
Yeah.
In a church. He went into a Bible study in the church and killed people there. But beyond that, I can't think of many church shootings like this. And that level of anti-Semitism and that level of attention being made on matters of faith. So anyway, all said and done, two things. Number one, we are told in Scripture, and Jesus said it, "In this world you will have trouble, but fear not, I have overcome the world." So I will tell you this: do not let what I just said be the thing that keeps you from going to church.
Yep.
I will also say that if your church does not have a security program in place, then my next question is, why not? There's no such thing right now as a church that should not have a security plan. I don't care if you are the small country church with 15 people in attendance, or if you're a mega church with 15,000 in attendance. There is no reason in the world why your elders, your deacons, whatever they have, should not have already had a meeting that says, "Hey, how are we going to handle things? Who's the point person? Who do we have security cameras? What are the protocols? In the event of this kind of thing happening, what do we do? In the event of this kind of thing, what do we happen? And by the way, who's going to be the one who immediately calls 911? Who and all those? What's our safe place in case we have to hide the kids? Know those things. And I would go ahead and say, if you are a congregant, if you are a member of the church, but you're not in leadership, there's no reason why you can't ask that question. Tell them at the same time, I'm not going to stop coming, but I want to know that my leadership is doing what it takes to make this a safe place for worship. And then at the same time, I'll tell you, there's also going to be a matter of faith here. You're going to go, you're going to worship, you're going to grow, you're going to expand on your own faith. You're going to do so without fear, because we are told to be strong and courageous and do not be fearful or dismayed, for the Lord your God will go with you wherever you go. That's Joshua 1:9. But the whole crux of the matter is, there's also nothing wrong with being prepared.
Yeah.
There. I have said it.
And I'll add this last point, before we go to break, but I mentioned the example. What I said, sort of the same thing. We can't let this intimidate us from going to church and acting out our faith. There was a video from Nigeria of a church that was burnt down by Islamists, and the church goers went to the same church, with the entirety of the church burnt to the ground around them. Literally only the foundation is still there, and yet they still went to that same spot in the church and still worshiped as if nothing had ever happened. And that's the example that I think that needs to be set for Christians, not to let that intimidate us, not to act out our faith and go to church.
Outstanding. All right, brother, let's go ahead and take it to a break right now. We'll take that break. We'll come right back. Going to dive on into some stuff, man. We got to talk about some government shutdown. I got to check on the news because right now we're hearing that they just finished the meeting with Trump in the Oval Office. Don't know where it went, but we'll try and find out. Phil Williams, Rightside Radio. Y'all stay tuned. We'll be right back.
Me up a wall, right? And it's not just it's my wife and all of my daughters. So I got
but
four
wait
women
until she's 14 and the boy comes around.
Oh yeah, I don't even want. I'm not even thinking about that.
So
now.
my daughter, who's grown and married now, my daughter, I'll never forget one of her first boyfriends. So my dad, career Army, highly decorated, 2 tours in Vietnam. My granddad, career general officer when he retired, the whole thing. So the kid comes over to meet the family. Granddad comes in. My dad, who was probably less sensitive than me in many ways and some of this stuff, he's passed away now. Agent Orange finally caught up with him. But Dad walks in, looks at it and goes, "Oh, look, are you the guy?" And we apparently have a father and a grandfather, both trained to kill. How do you like that? Yeah, that was his introduction to the family. Yeah. But let me ask you this too. Being a team guy, did you ever have that moment where you came home and you're like in team guy, because you're like living in a locker room for a year on a deployment.
Yeah.
I mean, you go over there and it's all rough cut humor and maybe crass talk and things. And then you walk back in the house and it's the wife and 3 little girls. Yeah. And do you have to retool yourself?
I won't say you retool yourself. You just flip a switch on or off. I can be more like me in front of my wife, than I, and that's okay. And she just gets mad at me, she'll get mad at me for saying certain things. But as far as the girls, it's definitely a shift because of their age, right? Yeah. There is an age thing and I get that, but 2, because they are girls, and so it's just a switch you flip on or off. Like one of my, I don't know why, but the little one, I don't know who she heard it from one of her cousins, but she started calling everybody like the word that she used. She calls them a fartism. I don't know what a fartism is. I don't know, but she heard it from one of her cousins, I think, or maybe her older sister. She calls everybody a fartism. I said, hey, little girls don't use the word fart. And my oldest daughter, she says, I've heard you say it, Daddy. And I say, yeah, I've said it. I said, but it's different for boys and girls. And my wife said, it's the same for anybody. I said, okay, I'm going to stop you because you're wrong. I said, can a little boy hit any little girl? No. All the girls. And I said, now, what about little girls? Do they hit little boys? You go, yes, we can. Mom was like, no, you don't hit little boys neither. But I said, but you see, we view it as different. Just as society views a little boy hitting a little girl or a man hitting a woman is different, society views what comes out of a young lady's mouth different than what comes out of a young man's mouth. It doesn't mean that it's right or wrong, but it's the reality of what is. And it's a scriptural principle. It says, abstain from the appearance of evil. And for a young woman, abstaining from the appearance of evil, my wife could punch me in the eye and nobody would care. I mean, that's just the bottom line. I'm saying as a law enforcement officer. Because honestly, she might black my eye. A buddy of mine, him and his wife got in a fight, and he came to work. I was actually just training with him the other day. He's going back to the agency to do some stuff, but we're at in the SEAL teams, and he come to work with a little bit of a black eye and a little cut right here. And we're like, what happened to you? He said, bro, me and my wife got in a fight, and he said, I said something. And he said, she just punched me in the eye. I just started laughing, and it was funny. Right? We laugh at that. But if he had punched her, if he had hit her, he probably would have broke her orbital. I mean, he could have actually. I mean, there's a good chance that if
he probably would have been off the team too.
Oh no, not off the team. He'd been in jail. There'd been a whole process. But what I'm saying is, there's a level of difference because he can actually physically hurt her really bad. I don't care who the chick is out there. There are very few chicks. You might have a few that like are fight trained or whatever, but most chicks hit a dude. Yeah, you might hurt me a little bit, but you need an object to be an equalizer. Yeah. Most dudes hit a chick, you're gonna hurt them really bad. So I say all that to say it is different, and it's viewed differently for that reason. We view a guy that hits a girl is extremely bad, and a girl that hits a guy we don't think much of. We don't think much about. You view a guy that has a bad mouth, we might be like, I don't like hanging around that guy because all he does is talk bad all the time. I don't think he's a Christian. But think of the girls that you know that have a filthy mouth. You view them differently. And so that's one thing that I try to teach my daughters. That's one thing I learned from the SEAL teams, and trying to flip that switch on and off is there still is a difference, regardless of how our society wants to blur the lines. There's a difference in how we view it. There's a difference in how people view it. And it's important to understand and uphold that difference.
And stepping back in the house, though, I mean, the decompression piece is good.
Yeah.
That was the place where, like you said, you can be yourself around your wife more than you can anywhere else.
And it's that never was hard for me though. That was never it was for some guys,
not me
but
either.
Not for
but
me.
it was great. It was wonderful to walk back in and go, ugh.
Oh yeah. That's what it was. It was a relief. I mean, it was almost
Absolutely.
absolutely. Yeah, that's it.
But I do recall one time I'd been back from one of the deployments. And we are back. Phil Williams, Rightside Radio, solid conservative and just plain right. Just making common sense like a superpower. All right, so I tell you what, let's talk about this government shutdown thing for just a minute. We don't have details yet. They're still speaking at the microphone right now, so the details are yet to unfold from what happened today in the Oval Office. Whether or not Trump can exert the art of the deal on this one and close an opportunity, I don't know. I don't know that we're going to see something happen today. What's interesting, there's several things here. If you're not familiar, the government shutdown. All right, so I am frustrated to hear that we are looking at a potential government shutdown. I would love to believe that by now we were on to the regular order of business. What is happening right now is the passage of budgetary requirements to continue the functions of government that extend beyond what the original continuing resolution allowed. What's a continuing resolution? I'll go ahead and tell you that too, just in case I have to catch some of you up. And listen, if you don't already understand it, don't feel bad, because this ain't the way the world operates. All right. It's not like this. There's no business in the world that can do what government is allowed to do. It just doesn't work that way. Well, we're really not making budget. What do you want to do? Just keep the budget the same. Really? Okay. And they just keep doing it. A continuing resolution is when they don't have a full budget passage. And the CR, the continuing resolution, is basically a passage of a resolution by the members of the body that says, we agree that we got more work to do before we can get a budget ready, so we're going to continue to extend that which we have already passed. It's like saying, more of the same, let's keep going. And that way, that is the force of law to allow, and I say allow, really, to allow the Office of Management and Budget and other, dispersing agencies of the government to continue issuing checks. And I mean, that means paychecks for military, all of it. So what's the regular order of business? The way it's supposed to work, ideally, in reality, is they're supposed to have the appropriations committees and all of their subcommittees, like the subcommittee for transportation or the subcommittee for military affairs or whatever the case may be. You have all of the different subcommittees of appropriations that develop their portion of the budget, debate it in committee, hash it out, redline it, put numbers in place, and then submit it and then pass it through the appropriations committee as a piece of the budget. They all get sent forward, brought to the floor, and they are passed. And when they bring them together, you have the actual budget. Oh, there it is. That's not been happening for quite a while, in large part because DC is so dysfunctional. The crazy thing is you actually are faced with what's known as a government shutdown if they don't pass a budget or a CR. Well, they're not going to get a budget passed by tomorrow because the last continuing resolution was passed with a deadline of September 30th. In the interim, one thing I am heartened to know is the regular order of business is in play, but the Democrats keep stymieing it because the Democrats can't stand the idea of anything going good under the current Republican leadership. So the appropriations subcommittees have already brought out and passed 3 of the sub portions of the budget. and they've done so in both the House and the Senate. So the framework is being built for the full budget, and the Democrats continue to filibuster, and they are stuck now with having no choice but to do a CR to keep the paychecks flowing and the expenses of government going and the bills being paid and the debt being serviced. And that's an awful position to be in. In the meantime, here's the other thing. Democrats, what are they holding out for? Why are they doing this? What do they want, Phil? Tell me. I'll tell you what they want. They want to shut down government so they can blame Trump, which is interesting because what they're doing is they're saying, we refuse to approve that which we approved a few months ago. Because they did. Chuck Schumer is the one who went to the floor and encouraged his brethren and sistren in the Democrat Party just a few months ago to accept this, which we are now just looking to continue for a short-term gap. Now, I'm not for CRs as a matter of course. I hate them. They bug the crap out of me. In Alabama, in the state Senate, we're required by our state constitution to pass a balanced budget every year. We have no choice. By constitution, we have to do it. Apparently not in D.C. But that being said, I do recognize there's been good movement on that. And I do recognize that we're trying to get that done. And I also do recognize that I've got family and friends that rely on a government paycheck. I've got members of the community that I know are going to rely upon certain things that are in there. And I don't believe that a government shutdown should take effect if the bill being passed or the resolution being passed is exactly what everybody agreed to just a short. I mean, we can remember it. It was last spring. Was it April? I think it was April. They passed the CR then, and everybody agreed to it. So what are Democrats doing now? First of all, they're posturing. This is friggin' political kabuki theater. You can go back right now and find clips of Schumer and Elizabeth Warren and all the rest of them saying, forcing something to a government shutdown is a cheap way of playing politics with our people's lives. And now they're doing it.
It's the only card they have.
It's the only card they have. They can't win an election right now. They don't have the majority. They hate Trump. And so they're going to do this because they want to try and show they're tough. We got to fight. We got to show we're fighting. Okay. You know what they're asking for, though? Here's the concessions they want. They want more money spent on Obamacare. What? Yes. They want it. They want to know that the tax credit for Obamacare is not going to go away. Do you and I have that for our Blue Cross? Do you and I have that for the other policies that we have to pay for out of pocket? No. But if you're on the Obamacare plan, they want the tax credit to remain in place. Otherwise, people's premiums are going to go up. And that's true. They also want to have an executive order rescinded that says that states cannot give Medicaid dollars to illegal aliens. That's what they want. They literally want to say California and Illinois and New York should be allowed to spend federal matching Medicaid dollars to give medical assistance to illegal aliens. That's a loser's argument. That's what they're doing. More on this when we get back. Phil Williams, Rightside Radio. Y'all stay tuned. We'll be right back. And we're late for church. And my daughter, who I think is 10 at the time, is still in the bathroom. And I go up to the door, and she's in the bathroom. And I called her Tootie when she was little. I said, Tootie, pinch it off. We have to go. And my wife leans down the hall and goes, did you just tell your sweet little girl to pinch it off? And I went, I did. Yeah. So I had to retool some of my, to recalibrate some of my lexicon.
What you say, yeah.
Well, let me ask you this. And I'm gonna switch gears here a little bit. Would you? Because I see the things that are in your life. I see the way you talk about your family. I see the way you talk about your faith. Obviously, I can imagine. I mean, my training was a lot different than yours, but I can imagine the dedication and the resilience it took to do the things you did militarily, combat deployments, what you're doing now with your businesses, which I'll get into in a minute. You consider yourself to be a mission-minded person?
Well, I mean, yeah. I mean, obviously, and I think that might just be a thing that men have maybe more so than, let's say, women. Women, and I've learned a lot about women because I have a wife and 3 girls. I'm around them right now. So they're very relational. And we have a HR person that works for us. I've known her for a long time at Covenant Rescue Group. She's kind of our office manager in HR. unbelievably relational. That's why we hired a female for that role. And men are not. And I would say one step further, yeah, I already have that more of mission mindset or complete the job mindset or whatever you want to call it. I would take it one step further with me. I do cherish relationships I have and friendships I have, but at the same time, the mission supersedes the man sort of thing. That's kind of and I definitely lean more to that than I do relationally, which is why I think God gave me 3 girls, is he's teaching me how to probably balance the relationship and the mission a little bit better than I have in the past.
All right, so
that's a long-winded answer.
No, it's a good answer. But let me take it a step further. So mission-minded. I mean, like for instance, me, radio, podcasting, practicing law. Those are things that I do, but I feel like I've got a calling that makes those things possible. So in the mission-minded kind of theme of this discussion, how would you take all the things that you do and say, I do them because my calling is?
Well, it's ultimately to present Christ to everybody we come in contact with. That's what I believe. The eternal is far more important than the things that are not eternal. And what is eternal? The only thing that's eternal is who we are in Jesus, right? And so I do believe every aspect of my life, whatever it is, wherever I find myself, I'm going to work as hard as I can so people say, wow, you know what, his actions show something different about him, right? But that's not good enough. I have to let them know what the different thing is, and that is Jesus. That's why I generally share the gospel, anywhere we go. Anybody you ask that's worked with us, I had a guy from a church call and say, hey, so how does CRG share the gospel? We're not a Christian-based nonprofit. We're just a normal 501c3. I just happen to be a Christian who's the CEO of a nonprofit, and we have a bunch of Christians that work for us, and we'll share the gospel. Say, hey, guys, look, we're not a Christian-based nonprofit, but this is what we believe. If you need prayer, if you need anything, we do that with law enforcement agencies. So that is the mission. Here's the importance behind it, and Jesus does this perfectly. I do not. You're asking, I use the mission versus relational, mindset, and this is a good segue into it. Jesus succeeded in fulfilling the mission that relationally a lot of people didn't want him to do. That was to go down on a cross. So he succeeded in fulfilling the mission. Obedience to the Father, obedience to the point of death. Job 13:15, though he slay me, I will trust him. But he did it for the relationship with mankind. It was the perfect mix of the mission and the relationship. And that should be who we are. So the mission is, as a Christian, share Christ with everybody, because that is the only perfect mix of mission-mindedness and relational mindedness, the relationship mindedness. Now, my wife and my girls, unbelievably relationally minded. We'll let the house burn down around us, but if we can go on vacation as a family, then that's what we're going to do. And it's like, well, okay, we can't do that every other week. We're not billionaires that can go and do all this. But let me tell you what, they'll do that. And every one of my buddies say their wives are the same way, right? When can we go do this with the kids? It's just, and the movie that I like to use an example. Have you ever seen Old School? You know the movie Old School?
Oh, yeah.
So Vince Vaughn is in there. He's like, you sure you want to do this, bro? They're up on stage. He's getting married. She's like, yeah, what are you talking about? Be quiet. And he goes, no, you sure you want to do this? I mean, look at her. There's my wife down there. She's holding the baby. Look, she's just sitting there watching, judging, look at the baby. As a unmarried guy, I never got that part. I mean, I always thought it was funny the way Vince Vaughn talks, just watching me, judging me, look at the baby. Now that I'm married, 100% get it, because that's it all the time, and because the family relationship is what they are so in tune with.
Oh, yeah. So we're grandparents now, by the way.
So even more so.
And my wife's grandmom name is Sweetie, which is a perfect fit.
What's your grandpa name?
Cap.
Cap?
I'm Cap.
All right.
Cap
all
and
right.
Sweetie. But Sweetie told me yesterday, if we don't get down to see the grandbaby sometime soon, I'm going to lose my mind.
It's like, hey.
And I want to see them too. But for her, it is way beyond anything I could ever put my finger on.
But for you, it's your work. It's this mission. And it might be sharing the gospel, and you have to find that perfect mix of it. And that's why I bring that up, is because the mission mindedness that I have, it would go too far one way, and I would work all the time. the relational mindedness that my wife has, it would go too far the other way, and we wouldn't have a dime to spare because we'd be vacationing down at the beach condo every other weekend, right? And so you have to bring those two things together, and the only way they're brought together, and you mentioned it, what is the point of the mission? Sharing the gospel, because that's the only thing that helps these two things correlate or coalesce appropriately.
Awesome. Let me jump into your team time a little bit. I want to hear about it just for a few. Time in the teams. Let me ask you first of all, why Navy? I mean, was that like the lifelong?
No.
I'm going to be a Navy SEAL.
No. I actually want to be an Army Ranger. You know, how about that,
Hey.
right? Yeah. So, or a Marine sniper. Saw that movie with Tom Berenger. Remember that movie, Sniper, with Tom Berenger? I always wanted to be a sniper, Marine sniper, and then after seeing Black Hawk Down, I was like, I want to go be an Army Ranger.
Nice.
My dad took me down to recruiting office, and I was like, Dad, I'd become a firefighter. I was 18 at the time. I turned 19 before I actually went into the Navy. I said, hey, Dad, I think I need to do this. Dad just said, hey, if you're going to do something, not that military service is not special, but do something different. You know, if you're going to go get a degree, get a master's degree. You know, go the whole route. If you're going to go to the military, do something special, do special operations. And Bush had just done the contract. You go rank.
Yeah, like the dude just said, solid, conservative, and just plain right. Well, welcome to hour number 3 on a Meatloaf Monday. Is it Meatloaf Monday? I didn't get to hear the sound effect, but we can't hear the sound effect because the sound effect board is out.
We can. If you give me a couple of seconds, I'll manually do it.
We'll work it. In the meantime, just know this: it's Meatloaf Monday, and we're glad that you're here. So this issue of a potential government shutdown. Look, my audience right now, I know, is filled up between Redstone Arsenal and other government agencies that are in and around the area, in our listening area in Chattanooga, and even down, going down towards Fort Benning and all the others. A government shutdown is a big deal. It's painful. Now, one question I did see on the text line a moment ago is about whether or not people get back pay. Yes, government employees will get back pay. It does not mean they don't have an interruption in pay, though, for some of them. Now, there are those who were deemed, and I hate to say it this way, there's essential and non-essential. I hate it when government uses those terms because I think they're all essential until they're not. Especially our U.S. military. I have a hard time with the idea of the military being deemed non-essential for pay. If you're in a combat zone, you still get paid. If you're not in a combat zone, you're probably not. I do believe we're likely to see at this point a shutdown tomorrow. I don't think it's going to last long because I think that the Democrats will make their point and then come back and do a mea culpa and tell everybody why they have to go ahead. They can't allow the pain to be inflicted any further. But I've got a clip here. This is Speaker Mike Johnson speaking, by the way, in his very calm demeanor on Maria Bartiromo yesterday. And before I do that, I will tell you that one of the things that was a question mark, and I spoke to someone in D.C. yesterday, was whether or not Trump was going to be able to get them in for a meeting, and he did. And they said they were taking heart over the fact that this is a senior member of a congressional office, said that they expected that would be very influential and potentially positive. I don't know. Look, Schumer and Hakeem Jeffries are not going to walk out of the Oval Office and go, we agree, because then it looks like they went in and got flogged in the principal's office, and they can't do that for pride reasons. Any decision is going to be tomorrow. It's going to be an 11th hour. If they're gonna change their ways, it's going to be tomorrow. But Trump did meet with them today, and that's huge because there was a lot of prickly stuff going out on the internet. I mean, Lord, I'm almost sick of being on X right now. X has become like a hate fest. I'm so tired of it. But the reality is, Trump did have a meeting today with the Speaker of the House, the Vice President, the Majority Leader for the Senate, the Minority Leader for the Senate, and the Minority Leader for the House. So he had Democrats and Republicans in his office along with J.D. Vance. And they wrangled, and they came out and made their statements. Now, to give you an idea where we were yesterday with the Speaker of the House, I've got clip number 1. JP, if you got it, let's go ahead. Listen to Speaker Mike Johnson on Maria Bartiromo talking about what Democrats are doing. Play it.
Still in this point where the Democrats just want to appear tough, like they're going against anything President Trump wants.
Exactly. And they're defying logic to do it. I mean, that's the whole point. Chuck Schumer got in a lot of political trouble because the radical left base in the Democrat Party accused him of, going along with Republicans. What Chuck Schumer was doing in March when he agreed to the government funding resolution was the responsible thing. He needs to do that again. This is the exact same scenario. He has to do the right thing. He is making a very selfish decision here. He's trying to give himself temporary political cover. The problem is he's painted himself in a corner. There's nowhere to go. And I just think it's shameful that they're playing politics with all the services that the American people demand and deserve. They're going to be stopped. Troops, think of it. Troops won't be paid because Chuck Schumer needs political cover. I mean, it's really that simple. And I think everybody's going to see that clearly.
Yeah, I agree with him. I think it's shameful when you consider that what we're looking at is the Democrats don't want to approve what they already approved earlier this year. That's what we're doing. And that's where we are. Well, they came out, and I've not had a chance to hear it, but JP worked his magic, and he's already got a sound clip of the statements that were made. Who is this, J.D. Vance?
Yes, it's J.D. Vance after the meeting, talking about his thoughts on the meeting and what happened.
Okay, so Vice President J.D. Vance came to the podium along with Speaker Mike Johnson and Majority Leader John Thune, and gave his statement as to how things went in the Oval Office. So let's hear that, and I'll react to it for the first time with you. Go ahead.
Very frank conversation with the Senate and House Democratic leadership. Look, the principle at stake here is very simple. We have disagreements about tax policy, but you don't shut that government down. We have disagreements about health care policy, but you don't shut the government down. You don't use your policy disagreements as leverage to not pay our troops, to not have essential services of government actually function. You don't say the fact that you disagree about a particular tax provision is an excuse for shutting down the people's government and all the essential services that come along with it. If you look at what Chuck Schumer has said in the past consistently, it's whatever our disagreements are, let's negotiate with them. Let's talk about them. Let's figure out a bipartisan solution, but you don't shut the government down. In other words, you don't put a gun to the American people's head and say, unless you do exactly what Senate and House Democrats want you to do, we're going to shut down your government. That's exactly what they're proposing out there. Now, we have to remember, they're very frustrated. They say that they're very frustrated about the fact that this negotiation has not taken place until today. But if you look at the original thing they did with this negotiation, it was a $1.5 trillion spending package, basically saying to the American people, we want to give massive amounts of money, hundreds of billions of dollars to illegal aliens for their health care while Americans are struggling to pay their health care bills. That was their initial foray into this negotiation. We thought it was absurd. We told them it was absurd, and now they come in here saying that if you don't give us everything that we want, we're going to shut down the government. We think that's preposterous. We think it's totally unacceptable, and we think the American people are going to suffer because these guys won't do the right thing. Now, I want to make one final point here. You will hear a lot from Senate Democrats, from House Democrats about the fact that American health care policy is broken. Well, we know that American health care policy is broken. We've been trying to fix it for the 8 months that we've been in office, but every single thing that they accuse about being broken about American health care is policy the Democrats have supported for the past decade. So if they want to talk about how to fix American health care policy, let's do it. The Speaker would love to do it. The Senate Majority Leader would love to do it. Let's work on it together, but let's do it in the context of an open government that's providing essential services to the American people. That's all that we're proposing to do, and the fact that they refuse to do that shows how unreasonable their position is. I think we're headed to a shutdown because the Democrats won't do the right thing. I hope they change their mind, but we're going to see.
Okay, so there's the Vice President of the United States saying he believes that we are headed for a shutdown. That's a crying freaking shame right there. And listen, what he stated was a statement of fact. Democrats can try to. There's no other way to skew it. I mean, they're out there on. You can go look at if you have an X account, just go look up any number of the libs who are saying Jessica Tarlov. You can look up, Hakeem Jeffries' account. You can look at any number of Elizabeth Warren, and just go find what they're saying. They are literally saying, we need to know that we're going to wind up, subsidizing Obamacare. That's what they want to do, and yet, you know what? At some point, when do we stop paying the tab for Obamacare? I mean, what they're really trying to do is push us towards the idea of a single payer system where everybody's on a government dole and we're all on an entitlement program. And that is just absolutely antithetical to where we want to be. Okay, that being said, why do the Democrats have any clout? We're in the majority, right? Why do they have clout? Because it takes 60. That's why. It takes 60 to break cloture. If you're not familiar, I'll just give you real quick before we go to the break. You have the debate of the bill and the debate of the bill can be filibustered ad nauseum. I mean, they can layer their filibusters, and they can just drag on. They can keep this going for a long time just on the filibuster. To break a filibuster, you have to do what's called invoking cloture. Cloture requires 60 votes. We don't have a 60 vote majority. So what that basically means is, in order to get to a simple majority vote of a passage, you still have to have a 60 vote on procedural invoking of cloture. And it's aggravating, but it's the rules and it's the framework. And while I am frustrated with it, I will say this: I don't want that to change. I do believe there needs to be a good, order and a rule and discipline to why. Otherwise, we'd have chaos. We would look like some, third world countries, parliament or something. So the fact that they have these rules in place is there for a reason, and no one's questioning that. But it is still the world in which we have to live. We need 60 votes to invoke cloture or an agreement to end the debate and just move on to the final bill. So that's where we are now. There's actually some great, and JP, I'm going to ask you to find this one. I do believe John Fetterman had some good things to say about why he believes a government shutdown is a bad idea. And so why don't we look during the break and see if we can find that, because I think Fetterman has become, I'll be the first to admit, when Fetterman got elected, I was on the air ripping the idea that the people of Pennsylvania elected him. And he was, stuttering and struggling with his words and struggling with, obviously with, mental health issues. And that guy he's become the man. He's like the voice of reason. And I was up there in DC not long ago, and I walked past his office, and he's got the rainbow flag out in front of his office. So there's not like he and I agree on everything. That's for sure.
He also voted to keep men and women's sports. So not 100%, but I agree. But I would say, even if we did have a majority rule, we'd still have to worry about like Murkowski or Collins and them to vote on it anyway.
How crazy is it? He comes up on the screen while I'm talking about him.
They listen to the show.
They listen. I swear they do. Let's take a break. I'm going to call DC and find out how they keep doing that. All right. Phil Williams, Rightside Radio. Y'all stay tuned. We'll be right back.
X-ray for the Green Beret, SEAL contract, PJ. So it was the SOCOM contract.
Call them SF babies.
Yeah, so when you're trying to up that number, so you don't have guys in the regular military going over there just trying to get anybody they can, get the top candidates. So I went and did that, and the hardest test, it was actually SEAL, Air Force for the PJ and the combat controllers. Then it was the Army for the X-ray, and then Ranger contract, or I think now it's called RASP, if I remember right, to actually go to battalion. And then finally was the Marine Corps had an 0311, 0311, their infantry contract, where you could go to screen for MARSOC after, I think, 1 year in the infantry. So somebody's probably listening. They could tell me where I'm wrong.
Were the Raiders standing up by then?
Yeah, they were. They had just, I think it was 2005 that they had started standing the MARSOC Raiders up out of Force Recon. Not Recon. Everybody's like, oh, Marine Recon. Recon is a regular infantry, battalion that do some, different things. But I'm talking about Force Recon, their Special Operations Command. You get a contract for any of those. And SEAL was the hardest. So I just said, all right, Lord, I'll do the SEAL, and if I pass that test, because I had to swim, the run was a little bit harder, had to do more pull-ups.
Were you a big swimmer before you got there?
No, not at all. I could.
Really?
I mean, I could swim. I wasn't going to drown if I fell in the lake, but I wasn't a swimmer. I didn't.
You weren't drown-proof to that point.
I was not drown-proof, and so I said, if I can pass this thing, that's the route I'll go. And it was physical, and then the written test. You had to score so high on your ASVAB, which is easy, and I did that, and I passed it, and I said, all right, Lord, I guess this is the route you want me to go. I got a contract. And, when I got the contract, I started training for 6 to 8 months, had nobody, didn't know any SEALs, didn't know anybody. I didn't know what to do. So I just kept running. I would run a lot. I knew it was a lot of running. I was running probably 16 miles 2 times a week. And then in the other times I was running shorter distances, 3 and 4 miles every day a week, just training. Pull-ups, push-ups, sit-ups, doing that. My dad said, hey, you don't have to work. If you're going to go do this, good job, son. Live at my house, eat my food, and train and be ready. And then I'd go up to my buddy's lake house, and I would tread water with a boat anchor. I couldn't tread water with a boat anchor initially, but I got to where I could tread water with his boat anchor. Those little John boat anchors. There's not much weight, probably 15 pounds or something, maybe a little bit more than that.
Yeah, but.
And I would let it down with a rope, and I would tread water. As I'd pull that 20-foot rope up, I'd let it down to the bottom under his pier, and I'd pull it up. I'd hold it over my head and tread, and then I'd let it back down, and that's what I would do. You can see he's over here laughing because I'm sitting here kicking my little feet like I'm doing it, right? And I would do that to train, and then a buddy of mine had a pool, and I would go swim in their pool every day of the week. I just swim laps back and forth.
I mean, how long was this self-training going on before you went down?
6 months, so it's, probably, about 6 months.
So what's
maybe a little bit longer.
I don't know the answer to this. What's the pipeline? So you took a SEAL contract, obviously.
Well, it's changed. It's changed a little bit now. So I'll tell you my pipeline, because the pipeline shifts it seems like it shifts every 2 years. I got a contract. I get slated for a time in the Navy, and then I have to pass the test to maintain the contract throughout the duration. So you go to MEPS just like anybody else does, went down to Montgomery, signed on, all that stuff. And 6 months, it might have been a little bit longer than 6 months, but they slate you for a time to leave for boot camp. So you don't leave immediately.
Delayed entry.
Yeah, so it's and it wasn't by choice either. It was just, hey, this is the time that we have for you to leave. And so I'm going through that process, and I have to continue to check into the NOSC or the little Navy area down there, go and check in. I do my screener, make sure I maintain that contract, and went to the Navy and went through boot camp. When you're done with boot camp, it's like 3 months long or 3.5 months, whatever it is. Go through boot camp. In boot camp, you have extra, because I had a contract for NSW, you have an extra training in the morning. So
Naval Special Warfare, for those who don't know.
Yeah. So you go NSW guys had to go and train early in the morning, swim and run and all that stuff at boot camp. So we got up earlier. Everybody gets up at 5, let's say, or whatever time it was. We get up at 3:30 or 4, go over, do an hour of training, come back. Everybody's up at 5, making their beds, getting ready for the day for your inspection, normal boot camp. So we had extra stuff at boot camp to keep us ready, albeit it didn't work that well. I got in worse shape in boot camp than I was when I got to boot camp. And once you're done with that, they had something called scruff duty. That's gone now, but scruff duty is where they hold you, and then they take guys, and whoever's the top screeners get sent out to BUDS to class up in BUDS in San Diego. And this is in Chicago, Great Lakes, Illinois, where the Navy boot camp is. So after boot camp, went to scruff duty. I got picked up in the first rotation, and they send us out to San Diego, and there you check in, and you don't check into a class yet, because then they take the top screeners and they put them in the next class to sign, for BUDS indoc. It's not called indoctrination anymore, but at the time I was there, it was called indoctrination. And that's basically a couple weeks of prep for BUDS first phase.
And we are back. Phil Williams, Rightside Radio, solid, conservative, and just plain right. Just some bulletproof influence, man. Bulletproof influence. So I've got a piece here real quickly. I'll just tell you, it's kind of one of those things that rubs me wrong. But I pulled this off of MSN.com. Dateline yesterday. Democrats are reportedly quietly planning a luxury getaway escape to a 5-star resort despite the looming government shutdown. I hold it in my calloused former paratrooper hands. Democratic Senatorial Campaign Committee is hosting its Napa retreat, Napa Valley. Nice. October 13th and 14th at the Hotel Yountville in Napa County. Politico reported on Saturday. A number of senators expect to be there, but the Senate Democrats campaign arm is indeed planning a 2-day getaway at a 5-star resort. At the same time, we're talking about, troops not getting paid. That's a little hard to swallow. It's also really bad optics. I get it. It's like, 12 days from now. So it doesn't necessarily mean that, but it does feel like that. And especially when it gets reported like that. And if you look at it, MSN.com is not exactly a conservative website. So what we're looking at right here is the Daily Caller had originally found the story. It's now being reported always. You read the things, sleep deeply always in our luxurious accommodations, soak in one of our oversized sunken tubs, find warmth by your private fieldstone fireplace. By the way, people are going without pay because of you. Daily Caller News Foundation asked the DSCC to name the retreat's objectives and cost and other requirements, and they did not respond. So there's that. Now, I mentioned before the break that this government shutdown, that by the way, it's like, it's one of those things where you can agree to disagree on a lot of things, but the interesting thing is you can agree to disagree. And then there's people who are on the other side, and you actually get to where you enjoy their company. I had it happen all the time down in Montgomery when I was in state Senate. I mean, I can still recall very positive conversations with Quentin Ross, who I like. Quentin Ross was the Democrat minority leader in the Senate when I was there, and then he's now the president of Alabama State University. But Quentin Ross was absolutely a teachers union guy, and he's one of the most respectful, cordial, gentlemanly guys I ever saw. Enjoyed his company. Rod Scott in the House, same way, Democrat. I can name names like this and just go on about how there are some Democrats that they can stand for what they believe in and not be complete turds in the process. And one of those in DC who has truly surprised me, and I've been glad to say I've been surprised, because that means it's different than I had feared it was going to be, is John Fetterman. So Pennsylvania Senator John Fetterman, when he got elected, I thought, what in God's name just happened? The man can't do sentences. He's having to have all kinds of physical accommodations for his job. I mean, what in the world? Well, granted, he adhered to his therapies. He did what he had to do. He even checked out for a while and checked into a mental health center just to take care of some depression because he was coming back from having a stroke. And he has done exceedingly well. It's interesting. I understand that he's actually become good friends with Katie Britt, Senator Britt from Alabama. I've got a soundbite here JP found for us during the break. Again, from Maria Bartiromo on Sunday mornings on Fox, interviewing Fetterman about his thoughts on a government shutdown. This is a Democrat. Listen to what he has to say.
And I will always remain on is it is always, always wrong to shut our government down. That is a core responsibility. I'm always going to vote against those things. And if it's the Republican side or now it's our side, I'm going to condemn it as well, too, especially with the kinds of chaos that we are facing after Kirk. And now there's a Cat 5 storm that might hit our nation, too. Now, and you're willing to threaten us down. I was the only Democrat voting against that. And now that CR was the same CR from the Biden administration as well, too.
Right.
For me, I'm a big believer of if you want to change the policies, win elections. And that's really the way democracy works. And I didn't vote for the big, beautiful bill. And I do think healthcare, could be a solution. But I don't think shutting our government down is the wrong thing. And that's why I think it's the wrong time, certainly at this point.
Senator,
all right. How refreshing is that? Hear a Democrat say while he's in the minority. I mean, it's one thing to say it when you're in the majority. Everybody can say, well, if you don't like it, go vote different. When you're in the minority and you can't control the flow, for him to say, and not grudgingly, if you want to make a change in policy, go win an election. That's spot on.
Yeah, it's a little bit of a breath of fresh air. But, Fetterman has also been leading the charge lately in terms of saying he's I think the only Democrat to say, no, actually the recent temperature being, risen in terms of political polarization is actually a Democrat problem. And we need to address that as a party.
Yeah. Yes.
So he's been a breath of fresh air on a lot of things. I wish there were some more John Fettermans, maybe like 5 or 6 more John Fettermans, so that they could break closure. And
that's all we need is 5 or 6 more Fettermans.
Just clone them. Yeah. How's that work? Anyway, all right. Listen, we're gonna wind up taking a break here in just a minute. But the truth of the matter is, there's more to talk about. You guys want to text in? I'll take those texts though next. 833-687-4448. That's 833-68-RIGHT. Text it, call it, same number for both. We'll be right back.
A lot of guys during that time. So that's the process. When I got out to San Diego, I classed up with class 264 and with NDOC, made it through NDOC, made it into first phase, and it's constantly a selection process. So out of the Southeast, they took out of a couple hundred guys that screened, 10 of us actually wound up going to Buds and maintaining that contract. And then when you get into scruff duty, there's a couple hundred guys there. There might have been 300 guys at scruff duty. Well, they took 50 of those guys that were the top screeners and sent them out to San Diego. So I was in that first run, and a lot of my buddies sent them out to San Diego. And in San Diego, you might have a couple hundred guys waiting to class up, and they'll take however many of those guys to fill that next class. So they're always selecting, taking the top performers because, again, they're trying to get more numbers through. The percentage still stayed the same as failure rate, but they're just trying to get more numbers into the teams. And so I classed up with 264, 366 guys with Bud's Indoc. And by the time we graduated Bud's, I think only 11 originals graduated. Wow. And of the 11 originals that graduated, of 32 guys that I started with actually got tridents. I was one of those guys. I didn't graduate until class 267. So you get rolled for injury, performance, maybe both. I got rolled, and in 267 is when I actually graduated Buds and SQT.
Yeah, we call that recycle in the Army.
Yeah, that's it. You're just getting recycled, but you only get one shot to recycle, and they might hold you 2 or 3 classes for your injury to heal, or whatever it is, but they'll throw you back into a class, and you have certain staples. So Hell Week is one. If you make it through Hell Week, you don't have to go through Hell Week again. If you make it through pool competency in the second phase, you don't have to go through pool comp again. If you make it, and then third phase, you'll have to start over.
Are there ancillary? I mean, in the Army we call them special schools, like additional special schools. And I actually had some Rangers some SEALs in my Ranger class.
Yeah. So
did you go to airborne school? Did you go to? What
yeah.
else
So we go to jump school because we're all Hey-Ho qualified, all that. So, but we had our own jump school. Because the Army.
So you're not at Fort Benning going through jump school doing that?
No, the guys used to. But when they set the requirement that all SEALs be Hey-Ho qualified, we stood up our own jump school right there in San Diego at Brownfield, and we did all of our static line there. I've only got like 5 or 6 static line jumps, and then a couple hundred, free fall jumps. There's some guys that really get into it. They have thousands of free fall jumps, especially guys over at development group that jump a lot. Now we spent a lot of time in the wind tunnel and did a lot of that, but and we had a whole air ops thing that we stood up at Team 3 where we would jump in with stuff, and you can do advanced schools later, but a requirement to be a SEAL is to pass jump school, free fall school. And some guys wouldn't pass it. Some guys make it through Buds and then they fail jump school.
That was one of the dreams I never got to go do.
Yeah. Free fall?
By the way, is that still considered a primary insertion technique for the teams? Is that?
No, I wouldn't say it's a primary insertion technique. There's some guys that have inserted into combat situations in Africa primarily via jumps, halo jumps or Hey-Ho jumps. The only ones I ever did was training, and so it wasn't really needed because we're at war in the country we were in, so we didn't have to jump in.
So all right, I see the pipeline. I see you got trained. Let me ask you this real quick before I move on to deployments. So Ranger School for me, I went and it was all about patrolling and small unit tactics and and mountaineering and whatever else and swamp operations, and which was miserable and all those things were they were real.
Where'd y'all do your swamp stuff at? Mississippi?
No, down in Florida.
Oh, in Florida? Okay.
Yeah, Eglin Air Force Base. But that being said, later I realized I think more than anything I learned things about me. Yeah. And I gained stuff that was not necessarily what I would call military. Yeah. It was more along the lines of things that it did to me, for me, and taught me about me. Yeah. What about you with Buds and the rest?
Yeah, I mean, it's I guess the most concise way I can say it is, again, a scriptural principle. David says, "You knit me in my mother's womb." God made you who you were before you were even born. He knew you, he knit you, he put you on this world for a certain purpose. And the New Testament tells us so that he's placed every man in his time and his specific.
Hey, all you Rightside ruffians out there, you are listening to Rightside Radio, solid conservative, just plain right. And we are back. Phil Williams, Right Side Radio, solid, conservative, and just plain right. Covering down on some major ground across the southeast U.S. of A. Y'all, this show all over the place. we got Rightside Radio. That's radio. And then there's all y'all out there that live stream the show on all of our social media platforms and around the world. You're dialing in, we can tell, and watching us live stream from the studio. And then, oh, by the way, you podcasters, 353,000 downloads of the podcast of this show. Some of y'all catching it after the fact that way. I say all that to say, we love it. We appreciate it. You're the only reason why we do it. So thank you very much. This audience, y'all are like the Rightside family, bunch of Rightside ruffians, but we appreciate you more than you could possibly know.
I do have to correct you, though.
What I do?
Over 356,000 downloads.
Have mercy.
Yeah.
It was 353 just the other day when you told me.
Yeah, over 356,000.
Wow, JP. Okay, listen, that's cool. Text messages. Let me get a few of these real quick. Michael from Madison says, my mom had a stroke last Sunday. I'm so sorry to hear that, man. But she recovered well enough to be released from the hospital after 3 days. And already by now, she doesn't have any speech issues or impediments. So I personally know that sometimes a stroke victim can recover. And Fetterman totally has recovered a long way from what he was originally. It's nice to see anyone recover from a medical condition, though it was weird as heck to see how hard they pushed him through in that condition at the time. Yes, it was. I mean, the man was visibly impaired when he first took office. It really bothered me. It bothered me that his wife was pushing forward on this, all of it, but nonetheless. And Michael, by the way, I'm so glad to hear about your mom. Blessings on her in the name of Jesus, and I pray that she continues to heal. Dave from Capshaw says, did you hear that Eric Adams dropped out of the race? I'm not talking about that right now, Dave. But yes, I did. Thank you very much. Perhaps tomorrow we'll touch on it, but yeah. Question is, what happens with his votes? Do they go to Cuomo or go to Mondani? I don't know. Merle from Hartzell.
That was a conversation we had.
Oh, that was okay. Got it. So I scored away. Thank you very much. David at Bucky says, JP, so Bad Bunny is Super Bowl 60 halftime entertainment. You guys are not texting on topic today. What is happening here? Is it like an all call? Is this free for all Monday? What's happening? Yeah, JP, so Bad Bunny is the Super Bowl 60 halftime entertainment. I don't care for Bad Bunny. I don't watch the NFL. I won't be watching the Super Bowl. I agree. I think that's the most jackleg choice. And I realize I'm coming from perhaps a genre of people that's like, bad what? Bad who? Bad why?
No, but I'm the generation that listens to him, and I don't like him. So there's that.
I mean, the guy's a complete heel. You talk about divisive. His public statements on things that people care about are so off color right now that you look at it and go, why was he the choice?
The Super Bowl halftime performances have been so bad lately. Like,
oh, they have.
Yeah. I mean, this is also the NFL. So Roger Goodell is not I don't have much confidence in him to make good decisions.
I don't get it. Is Bad Bunny really a big deal?
He's a big deal internationally. Like he's I can't remember what country.
This is American football.
Yeah, but global. But this is Roger Goodell also said he wants to have a Super Bowl overseas eventually, and they're going to keep ramping up the international games so that he's wanting it to be an international league. I know. It's so
we're going to have like the team from Frankfurt and the team from London and the team from like Stockholm all playing against the teams from LA and Chicago.
Well, all I know is we won a war to have the Super Bowl here, not in London, England. So just saying, I think that needs to be taken into account.
I'm just going to go ahead and say that was a reach. John from Huntsville says, Phil, I'm always on topic. LOL. Yes, you are, John. Sort of, maybe. Although you do throw alsos in there all the time. Yeah. Mike from Arab says, first and foremost, the lawmakers must go without pay also if they shut the government down. You know what's interesting is they won't. They won't. You know why? Because allegedly they're there hashing out the details of what it will take to get the government turned back on. So that won't happen. Joe in Tennessee says 2 years ago today, a brave and dedicated Decatur police officer rid the city of Decatur of an armed domestic terrorist who brandished his weapon at some others. Threat noted, neutralized, alleged. Is that which case is that?
Jabari people.
Yeah, that's Jabari. No, that's the one in Birmingham. In Decatur, I believe, if we're not mistaken, and I just because it caught me off guard here, I think that's the officer who came in on a scene where two other officers were unsure what to do, and he took out an armed assailant. So I'm almost positive. And then I had his wife on the show.
I've not seen a name anywhere, but
I'll find it.
Is it John Daniel Scott?
We'll find out. But anyway, thanks, Josie. Thomas from Athens says, Colonel, in my Christian faith, we believe that there is Satan working hard on earth to take souls to hell. Well, he is trying. He roams the earth like a roaring lion, man. Today we celebrate and pray to every day one of God's warriors, St. Michael. the archangel. He says, we pray that he will help defend us in battle against the wickedness and snares of the devil. So we must battle with vigilance and faith-filled strength against those who have been corrupted by Satan. So Thomas, I assume you're Catholic, but there you go. Thank you for that. And St. Michael is also the patron saint of paratroopers. So there's that. Terry from Town Creek says, don't Paul Feinbaum, doesn't Paul Feinbaum live in one of the Carolinas where his wife's a doctor?
Yeah, that's why he mentioned that currently right now he's a registered Republican in North Carolina. But yeah, that's going to be an interesting residency debate, as if they're all like, there's always a residency debate, I feel like.
I'm going to bet that Paul Feinbaum really hasn't thought that part through. I'm going to bet that he's got a house in Alabama and he thinks that qualifies him. But then there's going to be the question of, what do you claim as your residency?
Yeah.
Where were you registered to vote?
Yep.
Did you homestead your property in one state or the other? And if you homestead it in both places, you're wrong.
Yeah. Yeah. I think what he said was he was a registered Republican in Alabama before he moved. He still has a house in Alabama, and he's currently in the process of re-registering in Alabama, is I think what he said. So wonder if that's going to pass the test or not.
We'll see. Chris from Gadsden, who was giving me grief earlier about lawyering, just says, tip your waiters, I'm here all week. Turd. And Jeff Rowe from Indiana checking in says, Phil, I think that Bad Bunny should change his name to Dumb Bunny. Okay. He actually said he didn't want to have anything in the United States because his listeners would be afraid of being picked up by ICE. Well, if your listeners are illegals, maybe they should be. Yeah, the guy's a chucklehead. He's also, he dresses like Liberace. Acts like, part of the NWA gang from way back, and then says stupid stuff that half the nation is now alienated from it.
But he doesn't care.
But neither does the NFL, apparently.
Yeah, exactly.
Mike from Huntsville says 2 years ago was Stephen Perkins. That's who it was. Yeah. That's the name I was looking for. In Decatur, the officer who shot him is appealing his prosecution to the Alabama Supreme Court. Okay, that's what I recall. All right, listen, this government shutdown thing is going to be a live topic overnight. There will be things developing. I suspect we'll talk about it again tomorrow. I do know for a fact that I've got at least Congressman Strong coming on the show tomorrow, possibly Congressman Palmer also, because both want to put their 2 cents in on this. I'm curious, if you will, if there's anybody out there who is a government employee facing the loss of pay for government shutdown, who's been through it before. I'd like to hear your experience in this. That's 833-687-4448. 833-68-RIGHT is the number. So if you're facing it and you've already been through it once before, I would appreciate you giving us the insight of what your experience was in that. Was it long? Was it painful? Did your creditors help you out? Did you actually stay home from work, or did anybody get expected to work without pay for a period of time? I'm just curious, and it's civilian or military. I'd like to hear your experience. So there's that. The other piece of this is, what are Democrats going to do? They cannot cave, or let me phrase that. They cannot be perceived to be caving to Trump. So they met in the Oval Office today, and they're automatically going to begin going, I don't know, man, what should we do? Well, I don't know. They're not going to walk out of the Oval Office and immediately go, well, we've changed our minds, because then it'll look like Trump just flat out like excoriated them and scared them, and they changed their mind. I'm going to make a prediction. I just learned there's a Cat 5 storm in the Gulf, and I saw the radar map, and it's big. It's big. It's heading towards the Carolinas. Am I right?
That's its current trajectory. Yes. It's
coming up the Georgia coastline area, but it's not on the coastline. It's just spinning out in the Atlantic right now, right?
Yes.
Okay. So, but it is on trajectory right now to make potential landfall in the Carolinas. I'm going to predict that since FEMA is possibly subject to the shutdown, the Democrats are going to use that as their excuse of why they won't shut down government now, but they want some concessions later. And they'll say, because we're not heartless. We know that people need to be taken care of. We have a storm coming. We'll see if they do. Never mind the fact that Democrats did a horrible job when the train turned over in East Palestine, and they didn't do anything hardly to take care of people. In fact, they made it worse. Or when the Carolinas were flooded, and East Tennessee too, flooded, and people's homes wiped out, and they didn't show up to do squat. Now, I do believe they're going to wind up using the storm as part of their grounds for why they just won't turn government off now.
Yeah, I think that's fair. We may have reached like 6 hours into a government shutdown, and then Hakeem Jeffries and Schumer will say, well, unlike the Republicans, we got a heart for the American people, and we know that there's a storm coming, so we'll open it back up for the American people, unlike the Republicans who wanted to keep it shut down. Like that.
Yeah.
That's what they're going to say.
And I guarantee you, isn't there a very hotly contested race in New Jersey's governors, and also I think there's a hotly contested race for the Senate in a special in the U.S. Senate in Virginia. I could be wrong, but what I'm going to say is I bet they're going to say, we have heard our Democrat brethren talk to us about how important it is that we not allow the coastal regions to face a shutdown in the face of this pending storm. So
yeah,
you watch. Here it comes. All right, take me to a break, JP. We'll take that break. We'll come right back. Phil Williams, Rightside Radio. Y'all stay tuned. We'll be right back.
That he might reach out and find God. So he placed us here to find him, to be able to see this is who God is, right? The Godhead, God the Father, God the Son, God the Holy Spirit. So I do believe that aspect of it, but he made you a certain way, right? He made you to find him, but he also made you a certain way to share him with the world around. I don't believe, what I've learned is I don't believe everybody's like, oh yeah, they trained you that way in BUD/S, or they trained you that way to be a SEAL. No, that's not what they're doing. Notice everything I've talked about is a selection process. It's a constant selection process. And even once you get there, once you get to a SEAL team, once you get to in an instructor role, once you get to development group for the guys that go special mission unit, it's still a selection process for those individuals. Even once they make it there, you have to continually perform. And I would say that for me, that's what it taught me. They don't train you to do anything. I mean, they train you in some ways. They hone you, make you better. But the end goal, especially for BUD/S, is to find, is this the individual that we want to become a SEAL?
Yeah.
For sniper school, is this the individual that we want to become a sniper? I'm already a sniper, right? They just find me. I'm already a SEAL. They just find me. I'm already a Tier 1, a Special Mission Unit SEAL, Development Group SEAL. They just find me. Does that make sense? And that's all of their processes that they're doing in every aspect. Then you get out of the SEAL teams. I'm already an operator, but the CIA finds me for the specific thing they want, or the DIA finds me for the specific thing that they want. They don't really teach you to become anything.
Who was it? Was it Michelangelo who said that the art that he is sculpting is already in the stone? And
yeah.
I'm super paraphrasing. He just reveals it.
That's exactly
his job is to bring it out.
I would say that's the biggest thing that I've learned is that individual, wherever you're at, wherever you're at within your community, whatever, that individual is already there. For me in the SEAL teams, I was already a SEAL. They just found me, and there's not many guys. That's why we have such a high attrition rate, right? And then you go to the next step, like sniper school. That's why we have such a high attrition rate at sniper school. These guys are SEALs, but they're not a sniper. That's why you have such a high attrition rate in development group for the guys that go over SEAL Team 6. These guys are already SEALs. They're top-level operators. But we need something different for this. Does that make sense? And so that's kind of the flow. And that's probably what it taught me, is that everything is finding out, are you the person that can be this? Not training you to be the person to be that, which I find interesting because, again, it's a scriptural principle.
Yeah.
And oftentimes I think we find problems in this world. We either desire to be things that we weren't made to be. We shouldn't do that, right? It's the guy with the 1 talent, the 5 talents, and the 10 talents.
Well, boy's outside his gifts.
Yeah, that's right. If you're outside your gifts, don't desire to be something that you weren't made to be.
Yeah.
And be the best thing that you can be. It doesn't matter if it's a dang garbage truck driver. My granddaddy, he's a farmer. He loves farming. He loves digging in the dirt. And I was at his house this morning, and that's what he was going over, showing me his plants that he built a little greenhouse for. It's a piece of plastic draped over some cross ties or some sawhorses with cross ties on top of it. Because plants were $4.99 now, and he wasn't about to do that. He can put one seed in a little bowl and have 80 plants for less than $12, right? So he's in his 80s, but that's the way God made him. Are you being what God made you to be, or are you trying to be something else? And that's what the SEAL teams finds out. It finds out the posers. It finds out the frauds.
It does. All right, so multiple deployments.
Yeah.
Some, I assume, non-combat, some combat.
Yeah, so I mean, all of our deployments would have been considered a combat deployment, but not every deployment, like what I mentioned to you, the checking into Team 3, not every deployment meant, even though it was a combat deployment for the team, meant that I was necessarily involved directly in combat.
Right. So how many and where?
So as far as the Navy is concerned, 3 sea service deployments, but my last deployment, because it was a year long, and even the one to Afghanistan was a year long, but I rotated in later than some of the other guys. We rotated in and out of 9, I think it was 9 countries, and I'll name them all here in a second. We'll see if I get my number right. But you got the Iraqi, Iraq, but what's it called?
OIF, Iraqi Freedom.
Yeah, Operation Iraqi Freedom, OIF, OEF, Operation Enduring Freedom.
Right.
They call it all something different now, right? Everything's changed. Went to Jordan twice. Went to Bahrain twice. Went to Korea twice. Went to Yemen once. Ported in Oman. So, I mean, I got stamps for Oman, I guess. You could say I went to Oman. So maybe that's seven countries. Any of the others I've been to, we've been on contracts outside of the SEAL team. So I guess 7 countries during the time in the SEAL teams, rotating in and out. And then one of them was a cool mission. At the time, I was really upset about it because I wanted to be in Afghanistan with the boys killing bad guys.
And we are back. Phil Williams, Rightside Radio, solid conservative, just plain right. Making common sense like a superpower. A couple of quick texts, and I'll go to the phones. Karen from Chattanooga says, hey, from Chattanooga, Katrina is another example of when FEMA failed. Great documentary that recently came out on Netflix. Footage of either the idiot mayor or the governor tossing a water bottle out of a helicopter down to victims. Yeah, that was a absolute travesty of leadership. That was an awful situation. And I don't know if Democrats learned their lesson or not, but that was horrible. And they like to blame it on Bush, which is amazing because Bush is asking them, take federal help, take federal help, take federal help. And they're like, no, we don't want it from Bush. And then everything went downhill from there. Merle from Hartselle says, hey, Phil, Democrats want to shut down the government and non-essential people go on layoff. My question is, why are military folks, and I'm talking about present and retired, they've served their time, and then there are the disabled and widows who are not getting paid. Think about single mothers with children. Listen, I get all that. And they care more about illegals. I agree. It makes no sense whatsoever. John from Huntsville says, JP gets a solid A for his outstanding performance. However, today's winner, even though he missed half the show, is obviously the magnificent Phil Williams. Wow. If we had an applause track right now, we'd play it.
You didn't miss half the show.
Just like 40%.
You came in a segment early than half the show. So, yeah,
Thank you.
That's not fair.
Thank you very much. Thank you. Let's go to the phones right now because he's on there. Jeff Rowe from Indiana. Hey, buddy, how are you?
Oh, I've been better. I've been worse.
Okay. Not enough fried fish and pickled eggs up there for you?
No, I didn't even do that today. But I have clear of Nashville. That's the main thing.
There you go. Well, that's good. You're already on the north side of goodness then. So, well, what's on your mind, brother? We've talked about several things today, political violence, violence in general, and then we talked about the government shutdown. What's up?
Well, Phil, on JP, you get these fill-in hosts and everything, but I don't think any one of them's any better than what JP is.
He's
well beyond his years in intelligence, I think.
I would say he is like an old soul in his body. That's exactly right.
I appreciate that, Jeff.
In fact, if he had a voiceover to characterize your voice, I think I would have not known you wasn't even there.
Nice.
I appreciate that.
I have more hair, though.
Yes, he does.
For now.
Thank you. Thank you very much. All right. Well, what good things do you have to say besides that? Well, that was a good thing. What am I saying? Which one do you mind news and politics wise?
Well, the shutdown and everything.
Yeah.
Congress is supposed to submit a budget every year.
Yeah.
And I mean, it's laziness, dereliction of duty. It's basically, we don't want to touch this thing. We just want to keep it going because we don't want to be blamed for cutting any spending. What's it going to be like when we actually have a government shutdown because the economy has collapsed because the dollar is worthless? That's what
I hope we don't get to that point, brother. But you're right. I mean, how long can they keep this trend going? You can't just keep borrowing and spending. At some point, you run out of other people's money.
Yeah, I mean, we've already the interest is more than what we spend on defense already.
Yeah,
and we spend a lot of money on defense.
Yeah, and
so I mean, what's going to happen to the rest of the world when we collapse? And it's coming. I mean, they just keep pushing it off. I don't want to be the one to upset the apple cart until the apple cart falls over, and then it's like, oh, maybe we should have done something like back then when we could have.
The interesting thing is too, and it's not getting enough airtime because they don't want to give Trump credit, but the economic indicators showed that we had a 3.8% growth in the economy that Democrats hate because it happened on Trump's watch. And they also don't want to talk about the fact that the tariffs are actually bringing in enough money right now to where we actually made budget several months for the first time in God knows when. And so there are changes, and the Fed finally cut the interest rate. So we are seeing changes, but you're right. The budgeting processes themselves are a big part of our problem, and they've got to get back to regular order of business and pass actual budgets that show streamlining and some measure of cuts.
Yeah, if somebody doesn't get a backbone, and we have a budget like Alabama has, where you have to have a balanced budget amendment, this country is doomed. It's just a matter of time.
I have really not heard much from the Freedom Caucus of late. Have you? I don't recall seeing many headlines with the Freedom Caucus actually like making waves. No. Not since they fought about the Speaker of the House being elected have I seen really them do anything.
I mean, it doesn't do them very much good. I mean, we got such a thin majority in there right now. If they waver, then the Democrats will take control. So can't really say nothing with the numbers we've got right now, basically.
Yeah, I agree.
And but one thing, having a little thought of prayer today. My daughter had a gallbladder attack last night, and had to have her gallbladder removed a while ago. So but she's doing real good.
Was that an emergency surgery then? Was that an emergency surgery?
Yeah.
Okay.
Her name's Ashley.
All right. Well, Lord, we just ask you for Ashley for a complete recovery within the name of Jesus. Their doctors would be skillful, that there be no issue, and this would be something that passes by quickly without difficulty in Jesus' name. So there it is, my brother.
I sure do appreciate that, Phil.
I'm believing it. All right, man. Well, listen, you be safe on the road. The music's going to play here in about 45 seconds. So we appreciate you, and we will talk tomorrow, okay?
Y'all have a good one. Thank you very much.
See you, buddy. All right. Well, listen, I say it all the time, but the bottom line is this audience is like, I mean, I can have crazy days in court, bad days as an attorney. Not every day. I'm just saying sometimes I do. I can have the weight of the world on me, and I come in here and get on the microphone, and I have a good time, and I go home in a better mood, which Charlene really appreciates. So from Charlene and me, thank you very much. Last couple of quick texts. I saw some come in from federal employees. Brad from Madison says, I retired from federal service last year after 32 and 12 years active duty years as an Army civilian. I've been through several government shutdowns. We always got paid after the fact. What isn't talked about is the wasted effort spent preparing for the shutdown. HR preparing, sending letters to commanders. Senior civilian leaders must go and sign and provide to employees. Plans for providing mission essential services during the shutdown. Some things have to keep going no matter what happens. Explaining what to expect to employees and supported units. We had SOPs for shutdowns because they happened or were threatened so frequently. Right now, next, I'm not sure what he means here, but next, organizations on Redstone are preparing. Oh, right now, he says organizations on Redstone are preparing for the shutdown instead of giving all to their mission. That is an excellent point. The second and third order effects. Well, Brad, thanks you for your service. In the meantime, thank all of y'all for your service. We'll pray there's not a shutdown, but in the meantime, do not forget what I say. There are more of us than there are of them. God is still very much on his throne. Y'all stay in the fight. We'll see you tomorrow.